in a place called New Spain in South America. In the year 1664, there was a kind woman named Juana and her husband Miguel. They had a 4-year-old daughter called Mariana. Often during the afternoons, Juana and her family would walk in the woods exploring. Juana says, "Isn't this lovely out in the woods today?" Mariana says, "Yes, I love walking in the woods, watching the animals and birds." Just then, Mariana saw a little young bird who looked lost and rather sad. Mariana says, Mama, Papa, I can see a bird and it's not looking happy. I need to help it." Miguel says, "Oh, Mariana, don't worry about it. It'll be fine." Juana says, "Miguel, let her help the lost bird." Miguel says, "Oh, all right then. Off you go, Mariana. See if you can help the little bird." Mariana went up to a bird and said, "Are you okay? Do you have a mama somewhere?" The bird nodded yes. So Mariana took it in her hands and set off to look for a lost bird's mother. A short while later, Mariana spotted the little bird's mum and dad. "Look, little bird, I can see your parents." The little bird was so happy the mother bird tweeted a thank you to Mariana. Now Mariana wasn't sure where her parents were by now, so the birds decided to help her in return. The birds flew around and Mariana followed them. Before long she was back with her parents. "Mariana," Juana says, "there you are. Did you help the little bird?" Mariana says, "Yes, mother. I found his parents and then the birds led me back to you." Miguel says, "Well, Mariana, when you do good things for others, often good things happen to you." The bird family followed Mariana and her parents to their home. They built a nest next to their house where Juana's mother Eva would visit them every day, bringing fresh seeds and grapes. The bird family was so happy they told other birds, who in turn decided to build nests around Mariana's home. Soon, Mariana had a garden full of beautiful birds. 15 years later, Mariana was now 19. This was her beautiful home set in the woodland valley. In the spring of 1679, on a lovely warm day, Mariana went to a garden with a bucket of grapes to give to the birds. All the birds in their garden loved grapes. Mariana had a shiny red apple for herself. Mariana called the birds with a whistle. "I got lots of grape treats for you." The birds saw her with a bucket which she placed on the floor, and then sat down beside it. The birds flocked around her, then settled to eat the grapes while Mariana ate her apple. Then Mariana noticed three little birds who were triplets, having trouble getting any grapes, as all the other birds were bigger and were pushing past them. So Mariana took 3 grapes and gently gave them one each. When the birds were all fed and satisfied, Mariana sat on the garden bench to chat with one bird that had become very special to her. That bird's name was Pinolo. Mariana says, "Hey Pinolo, isn't the air so nice out here today?" Pinolo tweeted and nodded yes. Then she said, "So I was going to say to you, it was such a wonderful thing that day when all the birds decided to live in my grandmother's garden after I helped your father find his parents when I was a child. It was like a wonderful gift to her. The birds are so happy that he and I made a best friend in you and your sister Rosie." Pinolo tweeted back to her telling her how pleased his family were with their new home. In the afternoon, while Pinolo went back to his mum and his siblings, Mariana went to sit with her family for dinner. They were having mincemeat soup. Whilst they were having their dinner, Juana was asking her daughter how she was getting on. Juana says, "So, Mariana, have the birds been enjoying their grape treats?" Mariana says, "Yes, they love grapes. It's their favourite food." Juana turned to Miguel and chat during dinner, while Mariana, Esther and Theo finished their soup. Juana says, "So, Miguel, what have you been up to today?" Miguel says, "Oh, you know, I've heard there is going to be a contest between a bull and an eagle at the stadium tomorrow." Juana says, "Oh, maybe we should go and take a look. Maybe Mariana would like to watch it with us. Mariana says, I'm sorry, Mum, you were saying something about an eagle and a bull? Juana says, yes, we should go and cheer for the eagle to win, but if it looks like a bull is going to win, I maybe have to leave early. Mariana says, well, yes, the eagle is like a king of the birds. I would like to see him win, but who knows? The bull is very strong. Then Theo asks Esther to make a guess as to whom would win. Esther says, I don't even know yet. Theo says, might be the bull. Esther says, or maybe the eagle. Theo says, yes, well, the bull is so strong. Esther says, nah, probably the eagle is, as he is too fast and can fly. Miguel says, okay, well, tomorrow we shall find out. A few hours later, just before bedtime, Mariana went outside to say goodnight to all the birds. Mariana could see Penelo getting ready for bed and said, hey Penelo, how you doing? Penelo tweeted to say he had a great day. To help the birds get to sleep, Mariana sung an incredibly beautiful Spanish lullaby. My sweet and precious little birds, my sweet and precious little babies, Penelo, dear fellow of mine, Penelo, my favorite of all time. In my heart and soul, I love you so. Sleep well, sweet dreams. Now I must go. Mariana said goodnight to all the birds and went back into the house to take herself to bed. At the same time, somewhere in the dark side of the spirit world, Lama Sabio's evil sister Malvado was gazing into a crystal skull where she saw Mariana. Yes, run back inside, little princess. I cannot stand that sister of mine doing all her good deeds and taking care of those stupid birds that she is so obsessed about. I may not be able to hurt my sister directly, but I could steal away her beloved grandchild, Mariana. Yes, that's it. I will steal away Mariana and lock her into the dark side of the spirit world. Or even better, I will turn her to my evil ways and make her my own goddaughter. Then I will turn her and my minions to my feeble sister and take her palace from her. The next day, Miguel, Juana, Esther and Theo were all getting ready to go to a stadium to see the contest between the bull and eagle. While Mariana was getting ready, she said to Penelo and the rest of the birds, hey everyone, I'm going to a stadium to watch the eagle defeat the bull. Penelo knew that the eagle was a mighty bird, and so asked Mariana if he could go with them to see it. Mariana says, are you sure, Penelo? I'll have to ask my mother if you can come with us to the stadium. Mariana asked her mum, and Juana thought that it would be okay. So, Penelo sat on Mariana's shoulder and the family set off in the carriage to travel to the stadium. They finally arrived at the stadium and took their seats along with the other spectators. The bull was inside his enclosure, on the edge of the arena. On the opposite side, the eagle was in his enclosure. The gates opened and the bull and eagle charged to the center of the arena, where they slowed and stared at each other. The eagle clutching a red and gold cape in its claws. The contest was to begin. Juana says, oh my, well, here we go. The bull let out a snort and charged. But the eagle flew high, avoiding the bull's attack, and screeched at his opponent. Theo says, whoa, this is amazing. Miguel says, I know, this is so good. Mariana stared at the eagle and cheered, come on, you can do this. The bull stared at the eagle again and prepared to charge again. The eagle readied himself, clutching his cape. This time, as the bull charged, the eagle released the cape, which landed on the bull's head. The bull, now unable to see, charged into the side of the arena, bumping his head. The eagle had won the first. Of the 3-round competition, Mariana and her family were enjoying the contest, especially as the eagle won the second round as well. The final round began. Again, the bull charged and the eagle dodged by flying above him, but on the third charge the eagle was too slow. The bull hit him hard. Penelo gasped as he watched the bull hit the eagle, fearing for the eagle's life, and in the panic, with no regard for his own safety, Penelo decided to try to help the eagle. Mariana gasped nervously. "Penelo, what are you doing?" She shouted to her mum. "Penelo's trying to help the eagle. I need to help him." Juana says, "No, Mariana, you mustn't go into the arena. The bull will attack you if you do. It's too dangerous." Mariana let out a sigh and agreed not to enter. The bull saw Penelo land by the eagle's side and prepared to charge. The eagle recovered from the bull's blow. Clutching his cape, he took Penelo on his back and launched into the sky, narrowly missing the charge. With a swoop, the eagle turned and dropped the cape on the bull's head again to win the final round. With the contest now over, the eagle returned Penelo to Mariana, who was so relieved he was safe. Juana says, "Oh, Mariana, is Penelo all right?" Mariana says, "Yes, Mama, I think so." Miguel was not happy that Penelo entered the arena, and was very cross with Mariana as he thought that she had told Penelo to assist the eagle. Back at their house, Mariana went to take Penelo into a garden. Penelo chirped an apology to her. Mariana says, "Yes, it's okay. I'm sorry too." Miguel called Mariana back into the house. He was still furious and said, "Mariana, I can't believe you put Penelo in danger by asking him to enter the arena." Mariana says, "But Papa, it was Penelo himself who decided to try and help the eagle." Juana says, "Miguel, Mariana, what is going on?" Mariana says, "I want my father to believe me that Penelo took that risk on his own, and it wasn't me." Juana says, "Mariana, I believe you." "I want your father to believe you too." Mariana says, "You see, Papa, my mother knows. Please, will you believe me?" Miguel says, "Mariana, for the last time, I know it was you, and you can never take Penelo out with you again." Mariana was shocked and ran out into a garden in tears. Juana says, "Miguel, what did you do? Please don't say things like that to her. You know she loves Penelo so much. She would never put him at risk." Miguel starts to feel bad for what he had said to Mariana. Miguel says, "Yes, Juana, I guess you're right, and I was just so afraid for Penelo, and I got angry. What can I do to make it up to Mariana?" In the garden, Mariana sat at the foot of a tree, feeling depressed. Penelo chirped to Mariana to ask her what was wrong. Mariana says, "Oh, Penelo, this is so bad. Papa is so cross and he won't believe me. He has forbidden me to take you out of the garden on my own ever again." Penelo sat on Mariana's shoulder and nuzzled into her to try to make her feel better. Suddenly, an owl landed on the grass in front of them. Mariana says, "Oh, you are a beautiful owl. I have not seen you before." The owl hooted to Mariana and said that she had overheard her conversation with Penelo. The owl was sorry that Mariana was so sad and said that she could help her feel happy again. The owl says, "Mariana, come over here with me to the garden wall." Secretly, the owl passed a feather over a medallion on its chest to open the dark portal gateway on the wall. As the portal opened, Mariana was dragged inside. Mariana says, "Oh no, what's going on? Penelo, help!" Penelo flew to help Mariana but was dragged into a portal as well. As the portal was closing, Miguel and Juana appeared in the garden looking for Mariana, but the first thing they saw was an owl wearing a medallion. To their shock, the owl started to shapeshift. It was not really an owl. It was a disguise used by a dark and menacing goddess known as Malvador. Malvador says, "Finally, at long last, I have her and her precious little birdie as well." As Mariana disappeared through the gateway, Juana says, "Oh no, Mariana, where are you going?" Miguel says, "Oh, Juana, I think a demon has taken her." When Juana realized what had happened, she cried and hugged Miguel. At the same time, Rosie sadly hugged Mother Annabelle as they and the triplets, Nonny, Tu and Jock, were shocked and they were sad that Penelo and Mariana are gone. Mariana and Penelo were transported to the spirit world and into a layer of Malvador. At the same time, Malvador appeared standing in front of the steps. Malvador says, "Ah, if it isn't the little Princess Mariana, it's so wonderful to have you here. We are going to have a lovely time together." Mariana says, "Oh, sorry, I'm not a princess." Malvador says, "Oh, nonsense, you aren't me, my lovely, and it's so nice that you have brought a beautiful little bird with you." Malvador turned to her henchman and said, "El Jago, see how beautiful she is?" El Jago says, "Oh, wow, is that a living person you've been talking about? She is gorgeous." El Jago tried to kiss Mariana, but she turned away in shock and disgust. Malvador says, "El Jago, mind your manners. Mariana here is our guest." El Jago says, "Oh, forgive me, Your Highness, I meant no disrespect." As he continued to stare at Mariana with a smile on his face. Malvador says, "Now, where was I? Oh, yes, Mariana, your father blamed you for what happened at the arena, but your mother believed you, and so the two of them argued. I know that has made you very sad. No need to be sad anymore, though I am certain you will be so happy here with me. I'll make an announcement to my minions, the gargoyles, to introduce you." Malvador turned to the gargoyles and said, "My minions, we have a person from the world of the living, the beautiful Mariana. Welcome her into our realm. She is one of us now." In unison, the gargoyles cheered loudly. Mariana became very afraid. She didn't want to stay here. She just wanted to go back home. Penelo told her they must find a way out. While Malvador was addressing her minions, Mariana and Penelo slipped away unseen. Malvador, having finished her speech, turned to Mariana only to find she had gone. Malvador turned to El Jago and said, "Where's Mariana?" El Jago says, "What? Where? I don't know." Gulp! Malvador grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off his feet and said, "You should have watched her, you fool! Where is she?" El Jago says, Whoa, I didn't see anything. I am so sorry." Malvador says, "You idiot! I was going to turn that little brat to our dark ways and have her help me rule the spirit land, and now she ran away. Where is Mariana?" El Jago says, "Okay, maybe her bird helped her get away, but who knows? I'm sure she'll come back. There's nowhere else for her to go. Please, don't hurt me, Your Highness. Seriously, guys, what do you think?" Other gargoyle says, "Yes, yeah, definitely she is sure to return. All will be well, Your Highness." Malvador puts him down and said, "You had better be right, fool, or you will pay. We will find her and go ahead with our plan. Soon the land of the living will feel the wrath of the dead. I will have my sister on her knees begging for mercy." Mariana and Penelo managed to slip away from Malvador and found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the spirit world. Mariana sat anxiously on the rock. She said, "Oh, Penelo, I can't believe this. This isn't really happening." Mariana sighed, feeling quite sad. Mariana started singing a song. "My sweet and precious little Penelo, my sweet and precious little Penelo, may we return home. Penelo, my fellow of mine, Penelo, you are my dearest friend. With all our hearts and souls, we love each other so. May we return home together and free again." Mariana began to cry. Penelo felt sad too, because they were trapped in the spirit world. Mariana stopped crying and said to Penelo, "We need to find a way out of here. That horrible demon banished us here. But as long as we believe in Lama Sabio, we could find a way out. We must find her and she will help us get back home. Come on, Penelo." So Mariana and Penelo began their search for the goddess called Lama Sabio. After some time, they came across a golden palace surrounded by narrow streets filled with spirit people. This place looked a lot nicer than the part of the spirit world where Malvado lived. Then finally they saw a beautiful woman that could only have been the goddess, Lama Sabio, walking in one of the streets. Mariana called to her. Lama Sabio heard someone calling her name. She looked around to see who it was and was surprised to see a young girl and a bird from the land of the living. They should not have been here in the spirit world. She recognized her goddaughter Mariana and rushed to greet her. "Hello," Lama Sabio says. "Mariana, what are you doing here wandering around the spirit world?" Mariana says, You're at Lama Sabio." Lama Sabio says, "Yes, of course it's me, and you are my goddaughter Mariana." Mariana says, "Oh, I am so pleased we have found you. We need help to get back home." Lama Sabio says, "Yes, Mariana, I will help you get back to the land of the living. You should not be here. Your family will be missing you so much." Penelo chirped hello. Lama Sabio says, "Hey, you must be Mariana's cute buddy." "Hello, Penelo. It's so lovely to meet you." Mariana began to tell a story of how she came into the spirit world. She told Lama Sabio about the owl she saw in her garden and how it used a magic necklace to open the portal into the spirit world. Sabio says, "Oh, Mariana, I am really very sorry to hear of what has happened to you. I think I know who's responsible for this. Do you know who this is?" Mariana says, "No, who is it?" Lama Sabio says, "She is a dark queen of the spirit world, and she is my sister. Her name is Malvado, goddess of mischief." Mariana was shocked to hear this, and she said, "Oh no! Malvado told me that she wanted me to join her in ruling the dark side of the spirit world. I feel so afraid." Lama Sabio says, "Well, you've been very brave getting away from her, but you can't get home on your own, so follow me. I will show you the way." So Mariana and Penelo followed Lama Sabio to her palace. As they walked, Lama Sabio told Mariana how she had been taking care of her grandparents after they had died. Mariana says, "Oh, I do miss them." Lama Sabio says, "Ah, but you'll get to see them again. Would you like to see them now before you return to the land of the living?" Mariana says, "Oh, yes, that would be great." Penelo chirped in agreement. Lama Sabio says, "Oh, and I have something here that I'm sure Penelo would love to see. It's a rainforest filled with the most beautiful birds. I'll show you where it is after we meet your grandparents." Mariana says, "Wow, that would be amazing." They all went to a special house in one of the streets near Lama Sabio's palace to visit Mariana's grandparents. They were called Eva, Marco, Cleo, and Joaquin. Lama Sabio says, "Okay, Mariana and Penelo, here they are." Lama Sabio let Mariana open the door, and Eva saw her. Eva says, "Is this my granddaughter?" Mariana says, "Grandmother Eva, it's so lovely to see you again. This is amazing." Eva was so happy to see her granddaughter. Marco, Cleo, and Joaquin were delighted to see her also. Marco says, "Well, if it isn't Mariana, you have come to visit us." Mariana says, "Yes, I can't believe this." Cleo says, "Neither can I. You're such a good young lady, aren't you?" Joaquin says, "So, you've come to visit us in our new home in the spirit world." Mariana says, "Well, and it's thanks to Lama Sabio. Isn't this wonderful, Penelo?" Penelo chirped happily. Then Lama Sabio said, "So, Mariana, we could stay for dinner if you like. Then we could go show Penelo the rainforest." Mariana says, "Yes, that would be wonderful." They all talked for a while when it was dinner time. Mariana and her grandparents sat at the table. Mariana was sitting next to Lama Sabio, who had prepared dinner for them all. Lama Sabio says, "Okay, what we have here is mincemeat veggie salad on a nice pita bread bowl." Mariana says, "Oh, Lama Sabio, this is amazing. I never tried food like this before. Perhaps Penelope can try a bit, right?" Lama Sabio says, "Don't forget to eat the salad, everyone." With the salad all gone, Mariana took a bite of the pita bread bowl and said, "This is good. I love it. Thank you so much." Lama Sabio says, "You're welcome. It's a lot like Yorkshire pudding." Mariana gave a little piece of bread to Penolo. Penolo tried it and loved it as well. Eva says, "Oh, Mariana, your bird liked it." Mariana says, "Thanks, Grandmother Eva." Marco says, "So, are you going to tell us how you found yourself in the spirit world?" Mariana wasn't sure, as she started to feel sad again when she thought about what had happened. So, Lama Sabio saw she was unhappy and so thought she would tell a story herself. "Oh, yes, Mariana told me what happened. My sister captured her and brought her here. But luckily, Mariana got away from her. Then she came searching for me to help her get home. Then I brought her here to see you all before she returns to a land of the living." Mariana says, "Yes. How can I get back home?" Lama Sabio says, "This can be tricky, but there is a way for you to get back." Mariana says, "What do you mean?" Lama Sabio told Mariana, Penolo, and the grandparents about her sister Malvado and how she wanted to control the spirit world all for herself and turned it into an evil place. Malvado discovered that Mariana is my goddaughter and decided to use a magic medallion that would take her from her world and bring her here, where she planned to turn Mariana into a dark side, knowing that this would hurt and weaken me, making it easier for her to control the spirit world. The medallion doesn't belong to Malvado. She stole it from Goddess Tonantzin. We will need to defeat Malvado and return the medallion to Tonantzin, who will then be able to return Mariana to a living world." Mariana says, "Oh my goodness, I know you could help us get home, but it does sound dangerous." Joaquin says, "How can we help?" Lama Sabio says, "There is nothing anyone else can do. I must do this alone, with Mariana." Mariana says, "But first we are going to visit a rainforest, aren't we?" Lama Sabio says, "Oh yes, just as soon as we have finished dinner." With dinner over, Lama Sabio took Mariana and Penolo to a rainforest. It was a long way away, and so it took a while to get there. The entrance was hidden in some thick bushes. Mariana pushed through the leaves and branches, and in front of her she saw a wonderful sight. She said, "Oh my goodness, this place is beautiful. This is like a wonderful dream I had." Penelo chirped happily and flew around the trees. Mariana ran into a forest and said, "Hey, Penelo, where are you going?" But instead of chasing after him, she ran around the trees in the forest. The birds who lived in the forest were very friendly. They flew up to Mariana and landed on both of her arms. Mariana sighed happily and said, "I can't believe this. I feel like I'm inside this dream of mine." Lama Sabio says, "I know. I knew you would like it. I can see Penelo finding lots of new friends around here. It's got lots of trees covered in different types of delicious fruit." Mariana says, "That's wonderful. I hope I dream of this place again when me and Penelo are back home." Lama Sabio says, "Of course you want to go home. You miss your family, don't you?" Mariana says, "Yes, I do. Will you be able to take me home soon?" Lama Sabio says, "All in good time. First, we must return the medallion to Tonantzin. Then she can open the gateway back to your world." Mariana says, "Oh, I hope so." Lama Sabio says, "Well, for now at least enjoy this beautiful forest. I will leave you here as I need to return home now." Mariana and Penelo went off to explore and meet the birds of the forest. After lots of the forest and meeting new birds, it was time for Mariana and Penelo to return to Lama Sabio's house. Mariana says, "Hello, Lama Sabio, we're back." Lama Sabio says, "Hello, Mariana and Penelo. Did you have fun?" Mariana says, "It was wonderful. If we have time, we would love to go back tomorrow." Penelo nodded and tweeted in agreement. Later that evening, Lama Sabio showed Mariana and Penelo where they could sleep. Sabio says, "But before bed, would you like to go and say goodnight to your grandparents?" Mariana went to her grandparents. They all hugged and said goodnight. Then it was time to go. Lama Sabio showed them where they would sleep that night. Lama Sabio says, "Here we are. It's a very comfy bed for you and for Penelo. There's a nest-shaped bed that is very cozy." Mariana says, "Oh, Lama Sabio, thank you so much. You have taken good care of us." Mariana climbed into bed while Penelo settled into the nest next to Mariana's pillow. Then Mariana says, "Well, good night, Lama Sabio." Lama Sabio says, "Good night, Mariana. Sleep well. We have a big day tomorrow." Sabio left them to sleep and went off to her home. At the same time, back in the world of the living, Miguel and Juana set up a chair, and they put a portrait of their daughter on it and lit up candles in the hope that a miracle would bring back Mariana. Esther and Theo were with them and prayed for her return. Annabelle, Penelo's mother, was tearfully sad, and were his siblings, Rosie and the triplets. They all missed Penelo and Mariana so much. Esther says, "Mama, what are you doing?" Juana says, "We're hoping for a miracle to bring your sister back to us." Theo says, "Oh, I hope she comes home soon." Juana says, "You know, we have Lama Sabio to believe in." Miguel says, "Yes, Sabio took care of my mother and my father when they passed away. I think Lama Sabio is the only way for Mariana to return." They went back into a house to pray in the garden. The candles glowed softly while they waited and hoped for a miracle. Come morning in the spirit world, Mariana woke up and greeted Penelo. "Good morning, Penelo." She stroked his beak. He woke up and smiled. As soon as they were dressed, they went to see her grandparents and Sabio. Lama Sabio says, "Oh, good morning, Mariana. Did you have a good sleep with Penelo?" Mariana says, "Yes, we slept better knowing we are safe with you." Lama Sabio says, "Yes, you are safe with me. It was good to see that you really enjoyed the rainforest yesterday." Mariana says, "Yes, I would love to go there again." Eva spoke to Mariana. "My dear Mariana, I wonder if the birds in the forest would give flowers for your hair." Mariana says, "Really? That would be great." Lama Sabio says, "That's a good idea, Eva. Mariana would look lovely with flowers in her hair." Lama Sabio, Mariana and Penelo went to a rainforest again to find flowers for Mariana's hair. Mariana whistled to call the birds to her. They answered her call, even some of the younger birds. Mariana told the birds about Eva's idea for a new hairstyle, and she asked them to gather flowers for her. The birds flew off to see what they could find. Soon the birds returned and decorated Mariana's hair with the flowers they had found. Penelo placed the last flower. It was a red rose. Lama Sabio thought Mariana's hair looked beautiful and suggested she could take a look at her reflection in the lake. Mariana looked in the lake and said, "Oh my goodness, my hair looks amazing." Then she thanked the birds. Lama Sabio suggested to Mariana that she might like a new dress to match her hair. She could conjure one up using her magic. Mariana was excited at the idea. Lama Sabio says, "I have in mind the perfect dress. It's one I know you have always dreamed of. Here we go." Lama Sabio used her hands to create magic dust, which flowed all around Mariana and made her glow. As the dust disappeared, she was left wearing a lovely new gold and pink dress. Lama Sabio says, "There we go. What do you think?" Mariana looked at her reflection in the lake again and said, "Oh my, I love it. Thank you so much, Lama Sabio." Sabio says, "You're welcome. Now then, why don't you go and show your grandparents your new dress?" When they got back to the village, Eva, Marco, Cleo, and Joaquin saw Mariana in her new dress. Eva says, "Oh, Mariana, you look so beautiful." Mariana says, "Oh, thank you, Grandmother Eva." Marco says, "Wow, your dress is quite spectacular." Mariana says, "Yes, it is, Grandfather Marco." Lama Sabio says, "Well, before I send you home, I would like to show you some things here in the spirit world." So, Mariana, Pinolo, Lama Sabio, and the grandparents all set off together. Meanwhile, El Jago was playing checkers with his friends when Malvado called to him. El Jago says, "Oh, I think that's our lovely boss calling me. Excuse me, guys, I'll be right back." He went straight to Malvado, and she said, "I have something to say." El Jago says, "Yes, have you? I haven't done anything wrong, have I? So, what are you going to tell me, Malvado says, "I see something interesting in my crystal skull. Come and look. It's that girl Mariana and her little pigeon. They appear to be staying with my sister Sabio." El Jago says, "Oh yeah, she's the one who ran away from you. So, what should we do, Malvado says, "I must have her. She'll be turned to our dark ways. Bring her to me, and make sure she never runs away again." El Jago says, "Well, my mission is about to begin." El Jago told his gargoyle friends about his task. "We will finish our game of checkers later. I must go to Sabio's village to find that kid. And her parrot thing." Mariana and her grandparents were touring the spirit world and were talking about all the wonderful things they had seen. Grandmother Eva asked Mariana if she had ever imagined herself as a bird, maybe like Pinolo. Mariana says, I have done sometimes." Eva says, "Ah, interesting. Well, there is a potion here that could do that for you for a short while." Mariana says, "Really? Sabio, where can we find such a potion that would turn me into a bird?" Lama Sabio says, "Well, I would have to make it. Follow me and I will show you." So Sabio, Mariana, and Pinolo went to a magical potion cauldron to make Mariana a special bird potion. Mariana says, "Okay, so what do we need to make this potion?" Lama Sabio says, "All we need is 3 grapes, an apple, a bit of bird seed. All go into a cauldron with this magic liquid." When the potion was complete, Sabio poured it into a little bottle and handed it to Mariana. Lama Sabio says, "Here you are, Mariana. Put this somewhere safe. It will be there for you should you ever need it." Mariana says, "Okay, thank you so much, Sabio. What's next on our tour?" Lama Sabio says, "Now it is time for us to go and meet Tonantzin. We need to tell her that we intended to send you home. To do that, we will need the medallion from Malvado." They went to go see Tonantzin, the goddess of earth. Lama Sabio says, "Hello, Tonantzin. It's so lovely to see you again." Tonantzin says, "Lama Sabio, it's always a pleasure to meet you." Tonantzin saw Mariana and said, "Hello, young one. You must be Mariana, and who is your feathered friend?" Mariana says, "It's an honor to meet you. This is my bird friend, Pinolo." Lama Sabio says, "Tonantzin, Mariana and Pinolo belong in the land of the living. They are here because my sister stole your medallion and used it to drag her into the spirit world. Malvado wants to turn Mariana into her evil ways to help her take over the entire spirit land. Thankfully, Mariana escaped from her and came looking for me, as I am her godmother." Tonantzin says, "So, your sister used my medallion to bring a living person here?" Lama Sabio says, "Yes, and I intend to recover your medallion so we can send Mariana home. Tonantzin says, "Very well. Now then, Mariana, I am sorry you have been brought here against your will, but I hope your visit here has not been entirely unpleasant." Mariana thought for a while, then said, "Well, I do really miss my family, but when I met Sabio, she showed me a wonderful rainforest with some beautiful birds. They decorated my hair with pretty flowers. It was also lovely to meet my grandparents, but I do really want to go home." Tonantzin says, "We will send you home, young lady, but first I have arranged an eagle race which I must attend to. Come and watch." So Mariana and her group went off to watch the eagle race. Competing in the race were 6 magnificent-looking eagles. The race took place every year, and the winner would get to choose the best hunting ground in the spirit world. Given Mariana's love of birds, Sabio was sure she would enjoy the race. Mariana says, "Wow, I haven't seen anything like this before with eagles." Lama Sabio says, "Are you ready, Mariana? The race is about to begin. In 3, 2, 1, go!" The eagles launched into the air and took off at great speed. Around the course they raced. No one eagle seemed to be faster than the others. Then in the final lap, the golden eagle beat its powerful wings hard and just crossed the finish line ahead of the others. Everyone cheered. Mariana says, "Wow! That was amazing! Thank you, Tonantzin, for letting me watch." Pinolo enjoyed it as well. Mariana went to congratulate the winning eagle. "Oh, hello there. Well done, you are magnificent." Pinolo sat on the eagle's head and chirped a hello. With the race over, it was time to think about getting Mariana home. Sabio thought that taking Mariana back to Malvado's lair would be too dangerous. Lama Sabio says, "Mariana, I am going to take you back to the rainforest. You will be safe there while I seek out Malvado and recover the medallion. I don't want to risk you falling back into her hands, so I must do this alone. Once I return the medallion to Tonantzin, she will then use it to return you to your home." Sabio escorted Mariana to the safety of the forest, then bade her farewell as she set off on her quest for the medallion. Mariana says, "Good luck, Sabio. I will see you soon." Mariana and Pinolo waited patiently in the rainforest. They relaxed and watched the birds. After a while, Mariana heard an odd noise coming from some nearby bushes. She and Pinolo went to investigate. She saw someone in the bushes. Someone she recognized. It was El Jago. "Well, look who we have here!" Mariana gasped as El Jago threw a net over her and captured her and Pinolo. He bundled them both in a sack and set off to return to his mistress. "Mariana has been kidnapped." Finally, El Jago got back to Malvado in her palace with Mariana inside a sack. El Jago says, "Hey, Malvado, looks like we have a delivery for you." At which point, he opened the bag and Mariana and Pinolo tumbled onto the floor. Malvado says, "Good work! At last, she's back to join me. And what are those ridiculous things in your hair, and what is this pitiful-looking dress you are wearing?" Mariana says, "Oh, those are flowers in my hair, and this lovely dress was given to me by Sabio." Malvado says, "Well, let me tell you, you don't look anything like yourself, do you?" Mariana says, "What do you mean? I look fine. What's wrong with it?" Malvado disliked Mariana's bright and cheerful look. Malvado waved her hands in the air and used her dark magic to change Mariana's look. The flowers wilted away. The lovely yellow dress disappeared, and Mariana's look was returned to normal, to how she was when she first arrived in the spirit world. El Jago says, "Okay, that looks much better without that lousy dress." Mariana was shocked at what Malvado did and said, "Oh no, my dress, my hairstyle, They have gone. Malvado says, don't you see? Lama Sabio isn't with you anymore. And so now it's my turn. Now come along with me. We are going to have so much fun. Mariana did not think so and said, no. Malvado says, what? And Mariana says, I know what you're trying to do to me, she said angrily. Malvado says, Mariana, don't you talk to me like that, you little brat. Mariana says, why shouldn't I? You took me away from my home, didn't you? Malvado says, yes, I did, because I needed you to join me and help me rule this world. Mariana says, no, you cannot just kidnap people and make them do what you want. I will never be your slave. Then she pushed Malvado very hard. The dark goddess became very angry and said, all right, you have your last chance. I will have you punished and locked away as my prisoner forever. She grabbed Mariana's arm and took her to a dungeon. But Penelo was hiding, and in her rage, Malvado had forgotten about him. Penelo saw, lying on the ground, Mariana's bird potion that was given to her by Sabio. Quickly, he swooped down and picked the potion up with his claws, whilst watching where Malvado was taking his friend. Poor Mariana was now locked inside a dark and damp dungeon. She sat down, hugging her legs, lowered her head to her knees, and started to weep. Penelo was watching, and as soon as Malvado had left, he gave out a little chirp. Mariana looked up and, wiping her tears away, and said, oh, my dear little friend, you're still here, and you have got my potion. Penelo flew inside her prison cell and gave her the potion, and they both hugged each other. Oh, Penelo, thank you so much, she said. She would drink the potion, turn into a bird, then they could both fly free, away from this horrid place. Mariana opened the lid and drank the whole potion in one gulp. Immediately, the transformation began. Mariana magically transformed into a bird, the same kind as Penelo. Mariana says, I can't believe it. I'm a bird. And now that she was a bird, she could understand Penelo speaking. And he said, Mariana, are you feeling okay? Mariana says, Penelo, I can hear you talk. Penelo says, yes, humans don't really understand bird language, but you do understand me now. Mariana says, yes, I think I'm ready to fly away from this prison, but I need your help. You will have to show me. Penelo beat his wings quickly, and Mariana copied. Soon her feet left the ground, and she began to fly. I'm flying! I can fly! Penelo says, well done! I'm so proud of you. You can fly as well as any bird. Mariana says, and I'm so proud of you too. Thanks to you, we can escape from this place. She kissed him on the cheek, and he smiled. Then Penelo said, all right, Mariana, let's get out of here. Together they flew through the bars of the dungeon cell and were free. Meanwhile, Sabio arrived at Malvado's palace to confront her sister. Malvado says, ah, well, if it isn't my big sister, Lama Sabio, no doubt you are here to talk to me about the brat. Lama Sabio says, Malvado, we need to talk. Malvado says, oh yes, go on then, tell me what is it you want. Lama Sabio says, you stole a medallion from Tonantzin and used it to open the portal to transport a young girl called Mariana from the land of the living, a spirit world. I am here to recover the medallion and send Mariana home. Malvado says, you know what? I don't think so. I have locked her away in the dungeon in the depths of my palace. You can't get to her without a fight. Sabio became very cross and said, you cannot imprison her. I intend to send her home. Malvado says, oh, all right then. Let's see what you have got, sister. The gargoyles closed in on Sabio. Malvado snapped her fingers and the gargoyles prepared to attack. At that moment, Pinolo appeared and chirped loudly, distracting the gargoyles. Lama Sabio says, Pinolo, is that you? Pinolo chirped to her and pointed with his wing at Mariana. Both birds tweeted and landed in Sabio's hands. Lama Sabio says, Mariana, you're a bird. Mariana chirped with joy. El Jago burst out laughing and said, The girl turned into a bird! Oh, that is absolutely freaky! Malvado knew that a purple bird was her and started to weave her hands to conjure dark magic to attack Mariana. A dark bolt of energy shot towards Mariana, but Sabio blocked her attack with a bolt of light magic. Mariana and Pinolo flew at the gargoyles to draw them away from Sabio. El Jago and the two other gargoyles tried to grab the birds. El Jago says, Catch those two flying pigeons! But as the birds flew around them, the three gargoyles bumped into each other. El Jago says, Oof! Hey, which way you going? Gargoyle 1 says, Sorry about that. Those two flying pests are too fast. Gargoyle 2 says, Yeah, but I just hope they don't poop on us. Sabio and Malvado continued to fire magic bolts at each other. Sabio glanced at the birds to check they were okay, giving Malvado an advantage, which she immediately took. Malvado hit Sabio with a powerful bolt of energy that locked her in a stone trap. Mariana says, Sabio, no! Lama Sabio says, Mariana, Pinolo, I'm trapped. I'm afraid I can't help recover the medallion. You will have to do this on your own. Mariana says, What? Why? Lama Sabio says, You know what you have to do. The medallion is around Malvado's neck. You must take it from her. Pinolo says, She's right. We have to do this. It's the only way to get home. Mariana and Pinolo flew at Malvado. Suddenly, right in front of her, Malvado conjured up a large pool of glowing green ooze and said to Mariana, You should have joined with me when you could. Now you will see what I can become. Malvado dived into the ooze backwards. When she emerged, she had been transformed into a giant raven and cackled madly. El Jago saw her and said, Oh, crud! As he and the other gargoyles ran off afraid for their lives. Malvado says, Yes! I can feel the power of the raven flowing through me! The battle continued. Mariana and Pinolo flew at the raven from different directions and tried to grab the medallion, but the raven was too fast and caught Mariana in her claws. Mariana says, Pinolo, help! Pinolo says, Mariana! Malvado says, You little fool, your time is up. You will have to try harder than that. Pinolo became very angry and said, Yes, I will try harder, just for you. He flew like a speeding arrow and snatched the medallion from around her neck. Mariana was struggling to escape pushing hard against the raven's claws. As Pinolo grabbed the medallion, the raven eased her grip and Mariana broke free. Pinolo and Mariana passed the medallion to Lama Sabio. As it fell into her hand, the stone trap evaporated. Lama Sabio was free to use the power of the medallion to defeat Malvado and turn her back into her normal form. Malvado says, No! It can't be! How could you do this to me? Lama Sabio says, I did this for the good of my goddaughter. I will not have you turn her into her evil ways. Remain here in your dark lair and never come forth again. Lama Sabio, Mariana and Pinolo left the lair, leaving Malvado growling in anger and frustration. All right, you win. I'm done. Having left Malvado's lair, Sabio held the medallion in her hand. Mariana says, "I can't believe we did it!" Penelo says, "Neither can I. We're finally going home." Lama Sabio says, "Alright, Mariana, I'm going to have to change you back to your human form." Mariana and Penelo stepped onto a large rock. Mariana says, "Well, Penelo, I'm going to be a human again." Penelo says, "Yes, I know, but I will miss you being a bird." Mariana says, "I love you so much." She kissed his beak and they hugged each other. After that, Lama Sabio turned Mariana back into a human. Mariana looked at her normal human self and said, "It's done. I'm back to normal. Thank you, Lama Sabio." Lama Sabio says, "You are welcome, and soon we will have you safely home again." Mariana says, "Yes, would it be alright if I can say goodbye to the birds in the rainforest before we go?" Lama Sabio says, "Of course you can." So they went to a rainforest. All the birds flocked around them, and they were happy because Mariana and Penelo were safe. Mariana says, "Hello again, I know I'm okay." Then she explained, "Penelo and I must go now, but I will think about you all. I will see you all in my dreams." The birds chirped a farewell to them, and Penelo chirped farewell in return. Mariana says, "Goodbye, little friends. We will meet again one day." After saying their farewells to the birds, they went back to see Mariana's grandparents again. Grandmother Eva says, "Mariana, Lama Sabio, you got a medallion." Lama Sabio says, "Yes, I have, and we will return it to Tonantzin." Mariana and her grandparents all had a farewell hug. Grandmother Cleo says, "My darling, take care." Mariana says, "You too." Then it was time to go and see Tonantzin and return the medallion. Lama Sabio says, "Hello, Tonantzin. We're back, and we have your medallion." "Oh, well done, and thank you so much." Lama Sabio says, "Mariana and Penelo, are you ready to go home?" Mariana says, "Yes, we are." As soon as Mariana handed the medallion back to Tonantzin, it changed shape. It turned from an evil skull to a symbol of Earth. Tonantzin used the medallion to open the portal and transported Mariana and Penelo back to their land. They would be returning to a garden at their home. As they were about to leave, Mariana said to Sabio, "You know, this place is wonderful. I guess I will be back here to see you again after I die." Lama Sabio says, "Yes, you and Penelo will return here when it is your time." Mariana gave Sabio a hug. Then she and Penelo passed through the portal and returned home. Mariana and Penelo were so happy to finally be back home. Mariana says, "Oh, Penelo, we're back! This is amazing!" Penelo chirped happily. When Penelo's bird family saw him, they flocked around to greet him. At the same time, Juana ran into a garden excited that her daughter had returned. Mariana says, "Mama, I'm back!" Mariana and Juana rushed to hug each other and they cried happy tears. Miguel saw what was happening and he too ran to greet his daughter and said, "Mariana, you've returned!" As he and Mariana hugged. Mariana says, "Oh, Papa, I am so happy to be home. I was taken to a spirit world and Penelo was with me. Oh, Papa, I have to say I'm so sorry for what happened with the eagle at the arena." However, Miguel knew that it wasn't really her fault. So he said, "No, Mariana, it wasn't your fault. I see that now." Mariana says, "What do you mean?" Miguel says, "Your mother and I discussed the matter, and I realized now Penelo tried to help the eagle on his own." Mariana says, "Yes, he's so brave and gentle. I love him so much." Joanna says, "Yes, of course you do, and so do we." But that doesn't matter, now we are so happy to have you home. Esther and Theo came into the garden to find their sister had returned. Theo says, Mariana, there you are. Esther says, where have you been? Mariana told her tale, but left out a part about Malvado as she didn't want to frighten them. She said, I've been in the spirit world where Lamasabio lives, but she returned me and Penelo back here. We saw some amazing things. My favourite was the rainforest with lots of birds around. Esther and Theo were amazed to hear what she had to say about her adventure. Theo says, well, it sounds like a wonderful place. Esther says, the rainforest sounds like a beautiful place. With the greeting done, the family went back inside the house. Mariana took a moment longer in the garden to listen to Penelo and his family chirp and sing their bird song. Mariana sang along with them. My sweet and precious little Penelo, my sweet and precious little Penelo, we finally came back home. Penelo, my fellow of mine, Penelo, you are my dearest friend with all our heart and souls. We love each other so. Now we are finally home, together and free again. The birds enjoyed Mariana's song. Then she went inside the house with her family. Penelo and his bird family went back to their tree. Penelo watched Mariana go and smiled. 1 week later, Mariana's parents bought her a new dress from the market. She chose it as it was similar to the one she wore in the spirit world. Then she, Penelo, and her family went to a park filled with forest birds. Mariana says, wow, Mama, would you look at these birds around us? Joanna says, I know. I'm sure Penelo would like to meet them. It's good to make new friends. Penelo saw the birds and he flew up to greet them. A little later, Mariana met 3 of her friends called Bella, Gabriella and Zoe. Mariana says, hello dear friends. Bella says, hello Mariana, how's it going? Mariana says, it's great. It's such a lovely surprise to see you all here. Penelo saw Mariana with her friends and decided to join them. Zoe says, wow, is this your pet bird? Mariana says, yes, this is Penelo. Penelo chirped to say hello. Gabriella says, oh, he is so cute. Zoe says, hello Penelo, how are you doing? Mariana says, he is so sweet. I love him so much. We've had many adventures together. He's so amazing, aren't you, Penelo? Penelo chirped yes. The family and Mariana's friends had a wonderful day at the park. Meanwhile, Lama Sabio was looking on from the spirit world. She was so pleased to have Mariana and Penelo return back to the land of the living. She knows that they'll meet up with her when it's their time. One day, in the year 2026, somewhere in a planet called Dramenia, there lived a young, beautiful Dramenian alien named Nineo. She met up with her mother, Tamara, and her father, Nasa. Nineo says, hello mother, hello father. Tamara says, hello Nineo, great to see you. Nasa says, we hear that there's a new place in the city we are going to have a look. Why don't you come along? Nineo says, I would like that. So together, they went to the new place in the city. It was a building that looks like a swell tower. It was so new, Nineo saw it for the first time and said, isn't it wonderful? Tamara says, of course. Your father and I thought you'd like to go inside. Nineo says, yes, I am sure we will have an amazing time looking around. I wonder what's in there. Nasa says, I wonder what's in there too, but I think we'll see when we go in. Tamara says, there will be many things to see, and you can see the view of the entire city. Nineo says, I'd love that. Maybe I'd like to acquire a necklace there. Tamara says, "That would be a great thing to have." The alien family are about to go in the swell tower, so they can look around and hopefully find a necklace for the beautiful Ninayo to buy for herself. Meanwhile, two city guards were making sure that everything was all secured in the city. Suddenly, a huge red Zorg ship appeared in the sky. It was not from this world. This was an invasion to terrorize the Dromenian world. The ship landed, and Zorg warriors disembarked. The guards speak in a Dromenian language. Guard 1 says, "What is that?" Guard 2 to the Zorgs, "Who are you?" Then two glass traps captured each of the guards, who were never seen again. Another Zorg ship cast a massive shadow over the city. Ninayo and her parents are going to enter a new tower. Just as they saw the invaders, the city inhabitants were screaming and yelling in panic as the evil mothership came to wipe them out. Ninayo and her family were in great danger. Ninayo gasped, "What is this?" Nasa says, "It appears to be a Zorg." Tamara gasped and said, "No, it can't be. We must run." Ninayo, Tamara, and Nasa run together to find a way for them to escape. Luckily, Ninayo found a ship that will help them get out. Suddenly, the Zorg glass dome trapped them, except for Nina. Nina says, "No!" Her parents were scared. They have no way out. Ninayo says, "Can you hear me?" Nasa says, "We can't get out. You must go before they see you. Run!" She then ran into a spacecraft station and found a ship to escape in. The ship's doors closes and the vessel blasts off out of the atmosphere of her homeworld. Ninayo looked out of the window and said to her parents, "Goodbye, Mother and Father. I'll remember you always." Sitting at the controls of the ship, she looked at a picture of her parents, which she took from her handbag. She had tears rolling out of her eyes as she cried. Back on Dromenia, the Zorg aliens used their weapons on the city's inhabitants, turning them into ash. Two warriors approached a dome holding Ninayo's parents and opened in speaking in a Zorg-like language before shooting them. Ninayo spent weeks in the escape ship until she found a new planet to go to where she can be safe from Zorg. The planet she found was called Earth. Somewhere on Earth, there was a young man named Jack Davis. Jack has autism. He is 23 years old, and he lives at Beeston in Nottingham. Jack attended Nottingham College and was in class with his best friend Milo. Milo and Jack had been great friends since they first met at the same college. The class was over, and the tutor says, "Okay, that's all, folks. Have a fantastic weekend." Jack and the rest of the students left the college building. Jack says, "That was a pretty good day, wasn't it?" Milo says, "Yeah, absolutely." Milo then asks his friend a question. "So, what are you going to do tonight?" Jack says, "I'm meeting up with my aunt at the cafe." Milo says, "Ooh, that's nice. I hope you have a nice meal there." Jack says, "Thanks, Milo, and I hope you have a nice weekend too." Meanwhile, another person came out of a different classroom. Her name was Shalina. She was bossy and unpleasant. She decided that Jack would be her boyfriend. However, that wouldn't happen because Jack didn't feel comfortable with her. Jack wanted a girlfriend that was kind and pleasant. Shalina saw him as she left her classroom and said to herself, "I see my future mate coming out of his class. He is such a handsome lad. I think I will go and talk to him." Outside the entrance, Jack and Milo said see ya to each other. Then Milo left. Shalina came over to Jack and said, "Hello, Jack." Jack says, "Hi, Shalina, how you doing?" Shalina says, "I'm pretty fine." "So, I was wondering if you can meet up with me this evening." Jack says, Thanks, but I have something else planned for tonight." Shalina says, "What would that be?" Jack wasn't keen to disclose his plans, but he said, "I need to go meet up with my aunt at a cafe." Jack had been living with his aunt for some years now. By now, Shalina started to laugh. What? What are you talking about? Why do you want to go to a cafe with your aunt? Milo saw Shalina laughing at Jack talking to her about meeting his aunt and said to himself, "Oh boy, she's nuts." Jack was cross, and he said to her, "Why do you think it's so funny?" Shalina says, "Because you said you were going to see your nerdy aunt at a cafe." Jack didn't like the way Shalina talks about his aunt, so he sighed and walked away. Shalina walked off in a separate direction and said to herself in a chuckle, "What a wimp, although he is a handsome wimp." Jack was walking, feeling displeased about what she said. Jack told himself, "Nerdy aunt, yeah, right. What was she talking about? Aunt Carrie's a fantastic aunt to me. I must try to get my mind off of it." So at last, he arrived at a cafe and he saw Aunt Carrie and smiled. "Hey, Aunt Carrie." Carrie says, "Hi, Jack, how was college?" Jack says, "It was great, how was work?" Carrie says, "It was pretty good." So the nephew and his aunt ordered food together. Carrie was having a vegetable sandwich with a drink of honey and lemon tea, and Jack is having a tuna cheese panini with a white chocolate chip cookie and hot chocolate. Jack was telling Carrie about his day at college and said, "So, Aunt Carrie, I thought I'd tell you what I've been doing at college today." Carrie says, "Yeah, sure." Jack says, "Well, today, me and my friend Milo did something for computing media. We made backgrounds. I made one that looks like some kind of interstellar space journey with a bit of blue and purple. I bet you'll love to see it when it's all done." Carrie says, "Wow, yes, I would love that. It sounds like you had a fantastic day." Then she decides to ask her nephew a question. Carrie says, "Are there any young ladies you'd like to chat with at college?" Jack says, "I have not found one yet, but there was one who came to see me when I left." Carrie says, "Who was it?" Jack says, "It's Shalina. I don't think she's my type. She can be rude and she can make fun of me coming to see you." Carrie says, "Oh, okay, and that bothered you?" Jack says, "Yeah, I said to her that I was coming around to see you. She laughed and she called you nerdy, which you are not. You are a fantastic aunt." Carrie says, "Aw, thanks, Jack. And yeah, don't listen to what Shalina said. You can also tell your best friend Milo about it if you need to get it off your chest. If you want, you can try out a dating website. You can find a partner who would be kind to you." Jack says, "Thanks, but I think I'll wait. I am in no rush." Jack says, "That's okay." They continue to enjoy their dinner at the cafe. After they had their food, Jack says, "That was really good." Carrie says, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to stay over at Paula's house with Lisa for the night. You got your keys with you, right?" Jack says, "Yes, I have." Carrie says, "That's good for you." So Carrie took Jack back home in her Audi car. This house where Jack lived with his aunt is at Boulevard Road, the street that's next to Highfields Park and University. Carrie dropped Jack off back home. He used his keys to open up the front door and went inside. He was greeted by his cat called Percy. Jack says, "Hey Percy, I'm back home." Percy meowed in reply, "Meow," and he rubbed his head on Jack's leg. Jack says, "Aw, I know, you miss me so much, but I'm here now." Jack put some food onto Percy's dinner bowl, and he checked to make sure he had plenty of water to drink. Then he went upstairs to his bedroom. He sat on the bed and picked up a framed picture of his mother. Sadly, she passed away a year ago. Jack was so sad that he'd lost his mum. Jack says, "Hey Mum, I had a good day at college, and Aunt Carrie and I had dinner together at a cafe. I could feel you with us." He hugged his mum's picture frame and said, "I love you so much, and I'd love to meet a girl someday. Someone beautiful and amazing, just like you." After he spoke to his mum, Jack took his telescope outside. He enjoyed watching the stars shining above in the night sky. He believed that one of the shining stars was his mum. He was staring through his telescope when suddenly he saw an object that was not a star. Something was up there and was getting closer. Jack wondered if this could be some kind of ship heading for Earth. In a panic, Jack took himself and his telescope back inside the house. He shuts the back door, his eyes wide and breathing hard. What was that thing? The ship was getting closer to Jack's house. It startled Percy, who ran upstairs to hide. The ship landed close to Jack's house. It came down into some trees on the edge of Beeston, close to where the Highfield Sports Complex was located. Jack decided that in the morning he would go out and see if he could find the ship. He would have to be brave. At the same time, Nineo opened the ship door, stepped outside and take a look at where she was. She had never been to Earth before. It was very dark and quiet. Her landing had scared away the birds. Everything was still and silent. There was one solitary owl that sat in a tree and started hooting. Nineo gasped. What was that? She saw the owl. The owl looked at her, then it flew away. Now, Nineo needed to find a quiet place to sleep after her long journey escaping the invasion of Dromenia. Nineo found a comfortable look patch of grass to lie on. She drifted off to sleep, waking at dawn. The next morning, Jack was getting himself ready to search for the object that came to Earth last night. His search began in Highfield Sports Complex. He decided to walk to the right side of the complex and into the trees. Jack knew the rough direction from where he saw the ship come smoking down the night before. So, he kept on searching and searching until he finally saw the ship. He saw that its door was already open. He got closer to look and see who or what was inside. But no one was inside. Jack says, "Wait, there must have been someone in here. Where is he or she?" Jack decided to search for whoever who came from the landing ship. At the same time, Nineo the alien, who came from Dromenia, heard a voice of a human saying something. She decided to find out who it was and walked slowly towards the voice. Jack was still looking for someone, then he saw a figure standing next to a tree. It was no human. He could tell by her pointy ears. It was an alien from a different planet, the one who landed on Earth last night. The two people saw each other for the first time. Jack was shocked. "Oh!" Then he decided to speak to her and said, "Hello?" Nineo was becoming nervous and ran to the bushes. Jack says, "Wait, come back!" Nineo hid into the bushes and Jack went over to her and said, It's okay, it's alright. I don't want to hurt you. It's okay." The alien saw him while hiding and said, Who are you?" Jack says, "My name is Jack Davis. I live near here and this is Earth. What's your name?" Nineo emerged from the bushes and said, My name is Nineo." Jack says, "So, what brings you to Earth?" Nineo was a little bit shy, but went on to explain to him. So Jack thought he decided to help her and said, "Do you need some help?" Nineo says, "I do not know what to do or where to stay now. May I go with you?" Jack says, "Absolutely." So Jack lets the alien follow him all the way back to his house. During the walk, Jack started to get a little nervous. He knew he should not let strangers come with him to his home. He said to himself, "Oh, my aunt's going to be so angry at me for this." But he decided to take Nineo back home. It was clear that she needed help. Jack opened the front door with his keys and said, "This is my home." Nineo says, "Is this a place you stay?" Jack says, yeah, just me and my aunt and my cat. They went inside and Jack closed the door. Percy came in and he saw the alien for the first time. Ninayo says, what's that? Percy hissed at her. And he ran off. Jack says, oh, that's my cat Percy. Don't worry about him. He can be a bit feisty towards strangers and even some other cats. Sometimes. Ninayo says, is it like a house friend? Jack says, yeah, when people have pets, they can be like house friends. Anyway, let's go upstairs. I will show you my room. Jack went upstairs to show Ninayo his bedroom. Jack opened his door and said, okay, here we are. This is where I sleep and even study and watch stuff on my TV. Ninayo says, oh, that's a wonderful room you have. Jack says, oh, thanks. He decided to pull up a chair for Ninayo to sit down. She sat down and looked around and said, I've never seen a place like this before. Jack says, it's really amazing, really. Then Jack said, Ninayo's a very nice name. Could I call you Nina? That could be your nickname. A very nice nickname. Ninayo says, of course, I'd be honoured. He smiled as she agreed. Jack says, have you ever watched something on TV? Nina says, well, I only watch things in the sky and the nature of Germania. Jack says, I see. I find them relaxing and soothing. But have you ever heard of something called entertainment? Nina says, what's entertainment? Jack says, entertainment is something people enjoy, like watching films and TV episodes. I've watched many of them. May I show one to you? Nina says, yes, please. I'd love to see something people on Earth created. So Jack turned on the TV and the streaming service and he said, you're going to like this. This is Star Trek. Nina says, Star Trek? Jack says, yeah, it's all about planet traveling, aliens, and it takes place in space. The final frontier. You see what I mean? Nina says, I'd love to see it. Jack says, okay. Jack turned on the TV and found the Star Trek series. Then he and the alien watched the first episode. Nina became amazed, and the episodes did entertain her. The moment she saw Spock do his hand gesture, she copied him. Jack says, wow, Nina, look at you. You really are enjoying this series, aren't you? I can't believe it. Nina says, yes. Who's this man who made a gesture with his hand? Jack says, his name is Spock. He's played by Leonard Nimoy. Nina says, he's wonderful, just like you. Jack says, oh, gee, thanks. The two new friends continued watching this show. Eventually, Percy went upstairs and he could hear a TV turned on and Jack talking. Percy says, meow. The cat was curious. He took a quick look, then he left to go back downstairs again. Meanwhile, Carrie was about to leave Paula's house and overheard someone saying something about lights in the sky last night. Carrie was aware that something unusual had happened, but she wasn't sure exactly what. This gave her reason to worry about her nephew. Paula says, I heard a noise outside, then I saw something out of the window. Lisa says, I know, tell me about it. What a noise. It sounded like something crash landing. It looks strange. Carrie says, I wonder if Jack saw anything. Oh, I hope he's okay. Lisa says, I can see you are worried about him. Carrie says, well, yes. I hope he stayed inside last night. I had better dash now and check on him. I'll see you two on Wednesday afternoon. Lisa says, see you later. Paula says, be careful when you get back home. So Carrie went to her car and drove back home. She says, oh, I hope Jack's doing okay. Meanwhile, in Jack's house, he and Nina took a break from watching a TV. Then Jack saw something on Nina's left wrist. It was a birthmark, but it seemed familiar. Jack had a similar birthmark on his right wrist. Jack says, wow, I see you have a birthmark on your wrist. Nina says, yes, Jack, what do you think? Jack says, well, that's amazing. I have one just like it. He showed her his birthmark. Nina found Jack's mark familiar, too. She raised her wrist up and placed it next to Jack's. Jack was speechless. He just looked at both birthmarks, touching each other on their wrists. Nina says, "What do you think it looks like?" Jack says, It looks like a shooting star." Nina says, "It does. Our shooting star." Jack says, "Your birthmark looks beautiful." Nina says, "Thank you. Your birthmark looks wonderful." Jack says, "Thanks." Then they heard someone open the door. It was Aunt Carrie. She stepped inside and said, "Hello, is everything okay?" Jack says, "It's Aunt Carrie." Then Jack became nervous because he knew he wasn't supposed to let strangers in the house, but Nina wasn't a stranger to him anymore. He felt he had known her for ages. Besides, Nina was lost on Earth and needed his help. Jack had an idea. Jack says, "Nina, can you do something for me, please?" Nina says, "What shall I do?" Jack says, "Why don't you wait outside the back door, and I'll talk to my aunt about something else. You can then knock on the door, and I will open it for you." Nina says, "Will this work?" Jack says, "Trust me, it will." So, Jack took Nina out the back door and closed it behind her. Then he went to see Aunt Carrie and said, "Hi, Aunt Carrie." Carrie says, "Oh, Jack, thank goodness you're all right." Aunt Carrie hugged him. Jack says, "I'm fine, Aunt Carrie. Nothing bad has happened." Aunt Carrie says, "But I heard something very unusual outside last night. I have no idea what it was, but I was worried." Jack knew exactly what it was and who was inside, but he decided not to tell her yet. Instead, he changed the subject and talked about other things. He said, "Actually, I thought I should tell you that I met someone at college." Carrie, having calmed down, said, "Oh, have you? It's amazing that you have met someone." Jack says, "I know. I asked her if she can come round to our house." Carrie says, "What did she say?" Jack says, "She said yes, in fact. I think she is here now." Carrie says, "Wow, I can't wait to meet her." Jack says, "I am sure you will like her." Jack opened the door and introduced Nina. Nina says, "Hello, Earth Aunt." Carrie noticed Nina's ears did not look human. She gasped, "Oh my gosh. Hi, Nina." Then she looked at Jack with a smile on her face and said, "Jack, please may I have a word with you in the kitchen?" "Nina, please excuse us." Jack says, yeah, okay." The two humans disappeared from Nina's sight, leaving her to close the back door. Carrie says, "Jack, who is that? She's not a human, is she? What on earth were you thinking?" Jack says, "Look, I'm sorry, but can I please explain to you?" Carrie says, "Explain what? You know it's bad to have strangers around. Plus, she's not even human." Jack says, "Of course I know I'm not supposed to do that. Aunt Carrie, please calm down and listen to me. I can explain." Carrie says, "I hope you will be honest with me. You didn't meet her at college, did you?" Jack let out a sigh and said, "No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have lied to you." Jack began his story of how he met Nina. "Having heard a noise and seeing strange lights last night, I decided to take a look, so this morning I went to a Highfields complex, and next to a tree I saw a little spaceship." Carrie says, "A spaceship?" Jack says, "Yeah, and the person came out of it, and she hid behind some bushes. She was lost and afraid, but she meant no harm, really." Carrie says, "Oh, okay, so is she some sort of alien from space?" Jack says, "Yeah, she came from a different planet. Anyway, I let her follow me home, and I helped her because she was afraid and had nowhere to go." Carrie says, "Look, Jack, I know you wanted to help. I was really worried about you, but since you told me what really happened, then I'm good with that. You are such a good young man, aren't you? And you meant well." Jack decides to give his aunt a hug and says, "It's alright. I'm very sorry that I made you upset with me." Carrie says, "It's okay. So let's go see her." Jack says, "Yeah, absolutely." They returned to Nina to find her looking around the living room. She heard someone come in and said, "Is everything all right?" Jack says, "Yeah, so, Nina, this is my Aunt Carrie. And Aunt Carrie, this is Ninayo. I call her Nina for short. She's really nice." Aunt Carrie, feeling a little nervous, said, "Hi, Nina, it's lovely to meet you." Nina smiled and Jack says, "You see, this isn't too bad, is it?" Carrie says, "No, not at all." Then she said to Nina, "How was your journey to, Earth?" The three of them sat down and Nina said, "It was a tough one." She then went on to explain what had happened to her home world and how she came to Earth. Aunt Carrie says, "Oh, Nina, that's terrible. It must have been very frightening for you." Nina went on to explain how Jack found her and took her to his home and made her feel comfortable. Jack says, "Yeah, we had a great time together. We watched the TV series Star Trek." Nina says, "Jack has been so kind to me. It was fun watching TV together. Spock and I have the same ears." Nina copied Spock's hand gesture. Aunt Carrie laughed. "That's amazing that you and Jack get on so well." Nina says, "Thank you, Earth Aunt." Then Carrie asked her if she was hungry. She had a very long journey from Dromenia. She said, "May I make you something to eat? You must be hungry. When did you last have something to eat?" Nina says, "That would be lovely, thank you. But what kind of food do you have?" Carrie says, "Well, I could make a baguette sandwich with cheese, tuna, lettuce, tomato and corn." Nina says, "I'd like to try it, please." Carrie says, "All right, I'll make sandwiches with chocolate ginger biscuits and glasses of milk." Jack says, "Thanks, Aunt Carrie." Carrie says, "I'll give you two a call when they're ready." Jack says, "Okay." Nina says, "Thank you so much." Carrie went to the kitchen and said about making food. Then Percy came to see her. Percy says, "Meow." Carrie says, "Hey, Percy, how about I make you some dinner?" She poured cat food on his bowl, and then she put two baguettes in the oven. Meanwhile, Jack was talking to Nina about what he's planning for tomorrow while they sat on the sofa together. Plus, he thought it would be nice if he let her come with him. He said, "I go out walking to Highfields Park once a day." Nina says, "Is that a nice place?" Jack says, "Yeah, maybe we can go there tomorrow together. And we could also go to the town of Beeston. It has lots of shops. Some of the shops sell clothing and nice things like jewelry and necklaces." Nina says, "I was about to get a necklace for myself, but I couldn't because of a Zorg attack on Dromenia." Jack says, "Right, okay. How about I buy one for you?" Nina says, "Really? Would you do that for me?" Jack says, "Yeah, why not? Friends buy things for each other. Besides, beautiful girls always wear necklaces." Nina says, "If I wear a necklace, will that mean I look beautiful?" Jack says, "Well, you are beautiful anyway." Nina smiled. She was really having a nice time talking with her new friend, and she was looking forward to going to the places that Jack told her about. Then Jack's aunt called, "Jack, Nina, your lunch is ready." Jack says, "We're coming, Aunt Carrie." Jack and Nina decide to sit at a table and eat their lunch. They were having baguette sandwiches. Inside them, there's melted cheese, tuna, corn and mayonnaise mixed together, served with tomato slices and lettuce. Carrie also gave them chocolate ginger nuts as a dessert, washed down with glasses of milk to dip the cookies in. Nina says, "Ooh, this looks so nice. Thank you so much, Earth Aunt." Carrie says, "You're welcome, Nina." As Jack took into his sandwich, Nina took a sip of the milk. Nina says, "This earth drink tastes wonderful." Jack says, "It's called milk." "Milk?" Nina asks. Jack says, "Yeah, have you had milk before?" Nina says, "No, but it looks familiar to something from my homeworld. That was called Mlik." "Mlik?" Jack asks. Nina says, "Yes, it does sound similar. Jack says, "That's very interesting." He dunked his biscuit into the milk and took a bite. Nina picked her biscuit up and said, "This little flat food looks very nice." Jack says, "It is. They're called chocolate ginger nuts." Nina says, "I see." The two friends enjoy their tasty lunch together. With lunch over, Nina told Jack how much he enjoyed it. She said she liked the milk the most. Jack was very pleased she enjoyed lunch. Then Jack's phone started to ring. It was his friend Milo. Jack explained that his friend wanted to talk to him and asked if she minded. Nina says, "Of course not, Jack. Speak to your friend." Jack answered, "Hey, Milo." Milo says, "Hey, Jack, how you doing, mate?" Jack says, "I'm good, thanks. Did you hear that strange noise last night?" Milo says, "Yes, I have no idea what it was." Jack says, "Well, Milo, I know what it was." Milo says, "Go on then, tell me." Jack says, "Some space pod came down to Earth and landed. In the morning, I found it in some bushes. It was empty, but then I saw someone hiding nearby. I went over to see what it was, and I found an alien. Her name is Neneo. She's lost, and I decided to help her." Milo says, "Wow, no way, really?" Jack says, "Yeah. She's lovely, and she's with me right now. We have had a great time together. We watched Star Trek, and Aunt Carrie made us sandwiches for lunch." Milo says, "That's so cool. I don't think Shalina's going to believe me when I tell her. But hey, I'm pleased she's having a great time with you." Jack says, "Thanks, Milo. We'll talk again soon." Milo says, "Rad. See ya." The call ended and Nina asks, "Who called you on your device?" Jack says, "Oh, that was Milo. He's my friend from college. I told him how I helped you this morning." Meanwhile, Shalina was in the town of Beeston hanging out with her two friends. They had planned to go to a club together. Then Milo saw them and said, "Hey, Shalina." Shalina saw him and said, "Oh, hi, Milo. What are you doing here?" "This is a surprise." Milo says, "Yeah, I have just had a call with Jack. He said that he may be heading into town later today." Shalina says, "Oh, that's great. We can maybe all hook up together." Milo was reluctant to speak of the alien Jack found. He thought it would make him and Jack look ridiculous. He thought he had better say something though, especially if they all ended up meeting. Milo told the girls about his conversation with Jack. Shalina and her friends laughed out loud. She said, "You must be insane! Why are you being so silly?" Milo says, "What? No, I'm not." Milo thought this was a good time to leave and said, "Well, I'm off. Thanks for not believing me." And he walked off. Shabby Girl 1 says, "Crazy stupid Milo." Shabby Girl 2 says, "Yeah, he is totally good for a laugh." That night, Aunt Carrie and Jack were getting ready for bed. They hugged each other and said their good nights, and Percy gets a tummy rub. Before Jack went upstairs, he saw Nina falling asleep on the sofa. He decided to put a blanket on her and whispered, "Good night, Nina." Then he went upstairs. Nina opened her eyes and saw what she had on top of her. It was a very nice, comfortable blanket. Then she drifted off to sleep. The next day, Jack and Nina were getting ready to go out to Beeston. Jack says, "Aunt Carrie, we're heading out now. I'll give you a call when we're ready to come back home." Aunt Carrie says, "Okay, Jack, have a nice time. You too, Nina." Nina says, "Thank you." Nina was getting a little nervous. She thought that the Earth people may notice her pointy ears and realize she was from another world. So she said, "Jack, I need to talk to you before we go." Jack says, "Yeah, of course. Is something wrong?" Nina says, "The people in your home world may stare at me. If they think I am not from Earth, they may be afraid of me, or even be unkind to me." Jack says, "Maybe some comfy earmuffs will prevent this from happening. I'll show you." Jack showed Nina his earmuffs, and he let her put them on so that people won't notice anything unusual. Jack says, "So, how do they feel?" Nina says, "They are so comfortable." Aunt Carrie saw her wear them and said, "Oh, Nina, you look so cute in those earmuffs." Nina says, "Thank you, Earth Aunt." Jack and Nina then took the tram into town. It was only a short ride to the town centre. Nina was concerned that people might look at her, or she might do or say something that will attract attention. Jack reassured her, telling her that she'll do fine. It was a very nice day in Beeston. The two friends walked together down the high street. There were a few people walking around. It wasn't that busy at all. Nina thought the shops looked very inviting. Walking and looking around reminded her of home. This was not unlike Dromenia. Nina says, "This place is wonderful, Jack." Jack says, "Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of different kinds of shops that you can go into. Just look around or buy stuff." They saw a shop called New Look. It's a clothing shop that has all kinds of clothing and even jewellery. This reminded Jack that Nina wanted a necklace. He asked her if she would like to stop by at this store and see if they could find a necklace that she liked. Nina says, "New Look? Is this a place that makes you look different?" Jack says, "Yes, in a way, because you can buy different styles of clothes and accessories. Let's see if we can find you a necklace that I can buy for you." Nina smiled and decided to go in. They entered the store and Nina checked out everything on the tacks and shelves and spent a good amount of time checking out the jewellery. Jack saw a necklace that reminded him of the Star Trek symbol. He took it and showed it to Nina. Jack says, "Nina, I think you'll like this one." Nina says, "Oh, that's a beautiful necklace." Jack says, "It is. Would you like me to buy it for you?" Nina says, "Oh yes, please, that is so kind of you." Jack paid for the necklace using his bank card, then handed it to Nina. Jack says, "Okay, Nina, at last you have a necklace." Jack put it around her neck and looked at the Star Trek charm and said, "This is so wonderful. It looks great on you." Nina says, "Thank you so much, Jack." And Jack says, "You're welcome. Shall we go to Highfields Park now?" Nina says, "Of course. I would really like that." So, the two wonderful friends caught a tram and take them to the park. The tram arrived at the park. Nina and Jack got off and they entered the gate. Jack says, "Here we are. What do you think?" Nina says, "This place is fantastic." Jack says, "I know. Me and my Aunt Carrie come here all the time. Sometimes I just come here by myself. I think it's lovely, though, that we are here together today." The friends took a stroll around the park. As they walked, they stumbled across a family of ducks. Nina gasped in surprise. "Oh my, they are so cute. What are they?" Jack says, "They're ducks." Nina says, "Ducks? They're so nice. I'd like to get closer to them." Jack says, "Yeah, sure, go ahead and try." Nina knelt down and let the baby ducks walk onto her hands. Jack says, "Wow, Nina, I think they're so pleased to see you." Nina was just talking to the ducks and said, "Hello, little duck friends. I've come to see you." One of the baby ducks quacked in reply, "Quack." Jack was reluctant to stroke the ducks. He thought they might peck him. Jack says, "So, Nina, let me try to handle them. I hope they don't nip me." Nina says, "They seem very friendly creatures, these ducks. Go ahead, you will be fine." Jack let one of the baby ducks climb onto his hand. Jack says, "Hey, buddy, nice to meet you." Then the 5 baby ducks went back to their parents and waddled off. The friends crossed a bridge and Nina saw a squirrel and 2 colourful birds. She decided to try and get closer. And she says, "Hello, beautiful creatures. I am honoured to meet you." Jack smiled. Nina had a way with animals. Jack says, "This is amazing. I can see you are really enjoying yourself." Nina says, "Jack, this is wonderful. These creatures are all so friendly. They really seem to want to come to me. Jack says, do you know what they are? Nina says, no, what are they? Jack says, a squirrel that's on your arm and the two birds on your hands are called finches. The birds flew off and the squirrel took to a tree. The couple walked on. The next thing they encountered was a little rabbit hopping along the path. Nina smiled and said, oh, hello, little hopper. Jack says, it's a rabbit. Nina says, a rabbit? The little bunny saw Nina and ran over to her. Nina picked it up and hugged it like a teddy bear. She said, he's very cute. Come and say hello to him. Jack stroked a rabbit gently and said, hey, little fella, you seem to like my friend, don't you? The rabbit seemed to smile. Nina says, does he have a family? Jack says, yeah, I think so. Then the rabbit family appeared and gathered around Nina's feet. Nina puts the little rabbit down to return to his family, and she says, goodbye for now. Then she said to Jack, I am having a wonderful day with you, Jack. I am learning so much and all the creatures are so friendly. Jack says, I'm so pleased that you enjoyed the walk, but there is more to see and do here. The park has rowing boats. Let's get one we can row around the lake. Nina says, I would like that. They went to a boat shed to rent a rowing boat. Jack took the oars, leaving Nina to sit on the bench in the boat to just enjoy the ride around the lake. Nina put her hand into the water. It's very soothing and feels nice. Jack and Nina were becoming more than just friends. Jack thought Nina to be very beautiful, and he really liked her. Nina thought Jack was so warm and friendly. And of course, handsome. Love was in the air for this lovely couple. One evening, Jack and Nina were sitting on the garden bench together looking up at the stars. Jack was enjoying the view of the stars and he said, wow, Nina, those stars are so pretty, aren't they? Nina looked up and she started to feel very sad. It reminded her of what had happened at Dromenia. A tear rolled down her cheek. Jack says, Nina, are you okay? Is something wrong? Nina looked at him and sighed and she said, you see, Jack, something terrible happened to my mother and father during the invasion of Dromenia. Jack says, really? What happened? Nina says, the Zord captured and killed them. I will never see them again. Jack was shocked and said, oh, Nina, I'm very sorry to hear that. Nina says, I love them so much, and I miss them, and they love me too. She sobbed. Jack says, yeah, I know you love them. You know, my mum passed away too. Nina said, oh, Jack, this is awful. I'm sorry to hear that. Jack says, that's okay. I was really sad and tearful when it happened. That's why I live here with Aunt Carrie. Nina says, that's very good of her to take care of you. Jack says, yeah, you see, my mum said that when people pass away, they become spirits and go to a nice place in the sky called heaven. Nina says, that is a lovely thought. So, your mother is in a good place now? Jack says, yeah. And Nina says, my mother and father may be in that good place as well, with your mother. I hope they are happy wherever they are. Jack put his hand onto Nina's and said, your parents, I am sure, were very nice people. Nina says, thank you, Jack. Your mother must have been a wonderful person. I see that in you. Jack says, thanks, she sure was. My mum also said that heaven is infinite. It goes on forever. Nina looked up at the sky and she said, heaven is infinite. After she said that, she and Jack looked into each other's eyes. Nina says, "You are more than just a friend to me, Jack." Jack says, "Thank you, Nina. I feel it the same way. You are beautiful." Nina says, "Thank you for my necklace, Jack. I will treasure it always." Jack says, "We had an amazing time together. I really enjoyed it." Nina says, "Yes, it was wonderful." The couple held hands and motioned to kiss. Just before their lips touched, Aunt Carrie called to them and said, "Jack, Nina, are you two alright in the garden?" Jack says, "Yeah, Aunt Carrie, we're fine." Aunt Carrie says, "It's getting late. You might want to go to bed soon. You have college tomorrow morning." Jack says, "Okay, we'll be right in. Are you coming, Nina?" Nina says, "Yes, I'm feeling sleepy now anyway." The couple went inside and get ready for bed. Nina would be sleeping on the sofa again. Jack says, "Nina, I'll be going to college first thing in the morning, but you don't have to get up early." Nina says, "College? What's college?" Jack says, "It's a place where you learn and create stuff and meet up with friends, like I meet up with Milo." Nina says, "That sounds like a nice place to go to." Jack says, "Yeah, it is." They both hugged and said goodnight to each other. Jack and Carrie went upstairs to their bedrooms, while Nina settled down on the sofa with a blanket. Then Percy came and climbed up on the sofa and snuggled into Nina and went to sleep. Nina couldn't sleep. She had a device with her that could signal any surviving ships of the Dromenian fleet. She wondered if she should try to make contact. Following the attack on Dromenia, the surviving ships that were defending against the Zorg were now scattered around the galaxy. The flagship of the fleet survived, and now its captain decided to search for any other survivors. Lieutenant Walther says, "Where shall we begin our search, Captain?" Captain says, "Our sensors indicate that some people managed to escape the planet during the invasion. We need to scan for any distress signals." Lieutenant Walther says, "I have nothing yet, Captain. I'm still not impressed with how easily our enemies pushing through our defenses and lay waste to our planet." Captain says, "No, neither am I." Then he heard something on the scanner. It was a distress call from one of the inhabitants. Captain says, "We have got one. Open the channel so we may talk." Lieutenant says, "As you wish, Captain." The captain was picking up a signal from Ninao's device. Captain says, "Hello, I'm speaking to a survivor that escaped from the Zorg." Nina says, "Yes, I left Dromenia on the pod and landed on a planet called Earth. It is very peaceful and safe here. Now I wonder if it's possible to return to Dromenia. If so, would you take me there, please?" Captain says, "I'll see what we can do. Before I go, what is your name?" Nina says, "I'm Ninao. My friend on Earth calls me Nina. And thank you. Goodbye for now." The captain turned to Lieutenant Walther and says, "Our first distress call was from someone named Ninao. She said that she's on a planet called Earth. We will continue to search for other distress calls. Then tomorrow we will set course for Earth." The lieutenant listened with approval to this rescue plan. The next morning, Jack woke to his phone alarm going off. He switched it off, got out of bed and decided to get dressed for college. Jack went downstairs and greeted his aunt. Jack says, "Good morning, Aunt Carrie." "Good morning, Percy." Percy meowed. "Meow." Carrie says, "Good morning, Jack. Did you sleep well?" Jack says, "Yes, I did, thank you." As they sat down for breakfast, Carrie asked, "Jack, have you seen Nina this morning? She was on the sofa last night, but I can't find her anywhere this morning." Jack says, "I haven't seen her either. Maybe she left before we woke up." Carrie says, "Why would she leave? Where else could she go?" Jack says, "I think she is missing home. She told me last night. Maybe she is trying to find a way back, in which case I need to let her go." Carrie felt bad for him and said, "Oh, I see. It's understandable that she misses her home. It would be a shame if she left. She's such a lovely person." Jack says, "Yeah, she is. I think I love her, Aunt Carrie." Jack finished his breakfast. He hugged Carrie, got his rucksack ready, and left the house to get a tram to Nottingham College. Jack says, "I love you, Aunt Carrie. See you later." Carrie says, "I love you too, Jack. Have fun. Take care." During the journey, Jack's thoughts turned to Nina. He missed her so much, and he wished he could see her again. At the same time, Nina returned to a place where her ship had landed. She sat down at the foot of a tree and sighed sadly. All she could think about was Jack. She had such fun with him, and now she may never see him again. She activated the beacon on her device and waited for the mothership to pick her up. When Jack arrived at the college doors and went to a canteen, he saw two mean girls picking on Milo. They were making fun of him because he was talking about an alien coming to Earth. Jack says, "Hey, what are you doing? Leave Milo alone." Shabby Girl 1 says, "Why should we, Autist boy?" Shabby Girl 2 says, "Why would you stick up for him?" Jack says, "He's my friend, and why are you picking on him anyway?" Shalina says, "He's been making silly stories up about some alien, so I decided to let my two friends have some fun with him." Jack says, "Shalina, tell him to leave him alone, please." Shalina gave Jack's request some thought, and because she quite liked him, she said, "Alright then, Jack, we will stop picking on Milo, but only if you will be my boyfriend." Jack was shocked. He didn't want that at all. He had to think of a different way to stop them teasing Milo. Jack says, "You know what? I saw an alien too. I didn't want the whole college to know about it, but I can prove you wrong." Jack picked up his phone and opened a photo of Nina and said, "You see this? Here's proof that there was an alien." The two shabby girls were shocked and said, "What is that?" Shalina was shocked too. Milo was smiling now, but was very surprised Jack showed them the picture of the alien. Milo says, "See, I told you so. The alien is real." Shabby Girl 1 says, "Is that a..." Shabby Girl 2 says, "It's a monster!" Jack says, "She's not a monster. I will explain. She's from a different planet, and she came here because her homeworld was under attack for some other evil aliens. Since she came to Earth, we have spent a lot of time together. She's kind and beautiful, and she's my new friend." Shalina snatched the phone from Jack and said, "I can't believe it. You let her stay over at your house with you." Jack says, "Well, yeah, she needed help, so why shouldn't I? My Aunt Carrie and I looked after her." Shalina was so upset that Nina spent the weekend with Jack. She thought that Nina looked like a mutant with those funny ears. Who knows? She could terrorize the whole town. She said to Jack, "I can't believe you actually fancied this monster." Jack says, "She's not a monster. Don't ever talk about Nina like that. Now please, give me back my phone." Shalina threw Jack's phone at him, and she says, "That's it. This is what I'm going to do." Shalina was going to reach out to a group of people whose purpose was to investigate possible alien intrusion on Earth. They were called the Exterminators. "I'm going to use my phone to call the Exterminators to hunt down this alien scum." Jack was shocked. Milo was not very happy either. How could she do such a thing? Jack was now very upset and worried about what may happen to Nina. Jack says, "I can't believe Shalina's calling the Exterminators to hunt Nina. It's all my fault. What am I going to do? I think I have brought trouble to the whole college." Milo tried to calm him down and said, "Jack, relax, dude. Relax." Jack sighed and said, "Okay, what should we do then? I think I need your help. I need to warn Nina. I don't want her getting hurt." Milo had an idea and said, "Hey, I know what we can do." Jack says, do you? Milo says, yeah. I will go and tell a tutor that you are ill and can't come in today. Then you can sneak away and help Nina. Jack thought that would be a good idea and says, I like that. Thanks, Milo. They hugged and Jack says, see you soon. I'll give you a call when things are looking better. Milo says, sure thing, and good luck. Jack quietly slipped out of the college and called his Aunt Carrie. Carrie was at work when he called, but she was on her break, so was able to answer. Hey Jack, you okay? Jack says, no, not really. Carrie says, oh, what's wrong? Jack says, I made a mistake. Milo's been picked on by Shalina and her friends. I stopped them from doing that and told them about Nina and showed them her picture on my phone. When Shalina saw this, she calls the exterminators to get rid of Nina. Carrie says, really? Why would she do such a thing? Jack says, because I think Shalina was jealous and so wants to get rid of Nina. I don't want her to do that. I need to save her. Could you please help me? Carrie says, oh no. I'll come and pick you up right away and we'll find Nina. She ended the call and made her excuses at work. I have to go. My nephew has an emergency and he needs my help. The exterminators were quick to arrive, and Shalina would lead them to where she thought the alien was. The agent says, so, do you know what the alien monster looks like? Shalina says, she has yellow hair, she is wearing blue and green clothes, and has very creepy eyes. The agent says, okay, and do you know where it is? Shalina says, yes. I can't wait to take her down. She has no place here. Meanwhile, Nina was sitting in a field waiting for the Dromanian ship to arrive to pick her up. Then suddenly, she saw a figure far away in the distance coming towards her. She thought it could be Jack, and she said, Jack, is that you? As the figure got closer, she could see it wasn't Jack at all. It was Shalina, and Nina was shocked. Shalina approached and said aggressively, hello, alien. Nina says, I thought you were Jack. Who are you? Shalina says, I am Shalina. I am very fond of Jack and wasn't happy to hear he's been looking after you. So, alien, I have a question for you. Were you in love with him? Are you trying to take him away from me? Nina says, why are you talking to me this way? What is going on? Shalina had brought the exterminators with her, and she managed to grab a zapper off one of them. Shalina says, I'm going to end you now. And Jack will be mine. Suddenly, a voice called out, stop! Nina, Shalina, and the exterminators turned to see who it was and saw Jack. He was on a mission to rescue his beautiful Nina. Jack ran to Nina and they held each other in an embrace. Nina says, you came for me. Jack says, yes, I did. I couldn't stop thinking about you. I have to stop them. Shalina screams, Jack! What are you doing? Get away from that thing! Jack says, no, Shalina, I am not letting you do this. She has to go back to her home planet. Nina says, I have meant no harm on any of you. I came here because of a Zolg invasion laying siege to Dromania. I escaped from the invaders and came here. Jack has been looking after and helping me ever since. I was hoping Dromania was safe to return to, but I keep thinking about Jack. He and I have done some great things together. We went walking around a beautiful park with lots of new creatures, and he gave me this. Nina showed them the necklace Jack bought for her. Then she said, I contacted a ship from my world to come and take me home. All of you must put away your weapons, please. The exterminators realized that the alien was not a threat, and in any case, would be leaving Earth soon, so they lowered their weapons. Jack and Nina continued to hold each other. However, this just made Shalina angry. She could not tolerate it. One of the exterminators says, Shalina, you hear what they said? Lower the weapon. We are letting her return home. Give me the zapper back now. Shalina says, What? No, I'm going to finish what I came here for. Shalina raised a zapper towards Nina and pulled a trigger. Jack yelled, Get down, Nina! And he and Nina ducked together just in time to avoid the fire. Shalina's shot missed and slammed into a wall. Bang! Shalina was in a rage that she missed. Now look what you made me do! I missed it! Jack says, I already told you to stop this. The agent says, Alright, madam, that's enough. Give me the weapon and return to the car right now. Shalina was furious as the agent led her back to a car. Alright, that's it. I'll leave now if that's what you want. I'm through with you, Jack. One of the exterminators picked up the zapper as they returned to the vehicles to drive back to their base, leaving Jack and Nina alone. Jack was so happy that he managed to save his girlfriend. Nina was so happy that her human boyfriend rescued her. They both hugged again. Then Aunt Carrie arrived and said, Wow, Jack, that was so brave of you. Jack says, Thanks, Aunt Carrie. Then he said to Nina, You're safe now, Nina. Nina says, Thank you, Jack. I'm so grateful that you came back to save me. Jack says, I had to because I love you. Nina smiled and says, I love you too, Jack. And finally, they both shared their first kiss. Carrie saw this and with tears of joy says, Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, I must have a tissue somewhere. Ooh. Shortly after the exterminator departed, the three saw a shining light in the sky that seemed to be rapidly approaching. As it got closer, they could see it was a ship. It was a flagship from Germania. The ship landed, the front door slid open, and a ramp extended down. The captain appeared at the doorway and says, Ninayo, thank you for calling us to let us know that you're here on this planet. Nina says, You are welcome. May I introduce you to someone? Captain says, Of course. Please do. Nina introduced Jack and Carrie to the captain. Nina says, Jack is the one who took care of me. His aunt named Carrie. She also talked to him about her days with Jack and the adventures they had shared. Then the time came for Nina to say goodbye to Jack. She was very sad to be leaving him and thought she may never see him again. Jack was also very sad at the thought of her leaving. He thought he would never see her again. Nina saw Jack's sadness and made a decision. She turned to the captain. Captain, I have been thinking. I choose to stay on Earth with Jack, as I have fallen so in love with him. I can't bear to be without him. I hope you understand. The captain accepted her choice, smiled and says, Good luck, Ninayo. Give me a call whenever you are ready to return to Germania. Nina says, I will do. The other Germanians picked up a space pod that was driven by Nina and took it to the mothership. Nina returned to Jack, which made him so happy. They would be together again. Then the captain gave a communication device to Jack. It would allow him to call the Germanian ship if ever he needed. The captain returned to the ship and departed. Aunt Carrie says, Wow, that ship was huge! And Nina, I think you made the right decision to stay with Jack. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful life together. Nina says, Thank you, Aunt Carrie. Jack says, Let's go home. All this excitement has tired me out. Jack and Nina held hands as they and Carrie walked all the way back to her car. Carrie says, Jack, why don't you sit in the back with Nina? Jack says, Yeah, thank you, Aunt Carrie. I would like that. Nina just smiled. Jack puts his arm around Nina in the back of the car as Carrie drove them home. When they got back, Jack and Nina once again sat on the garden bench looking up at the stars. Then suddenly, Percy jumped up on Jack's knees. He seemed to be comfortable around Nina now. They looked up at the stars and thought that one day it would be wonderful to go to Dromenia. Deep beneath the waves of the North Sea, nestled among coral gardens and shimmering schools of fish, lies the majestic palace of Aquarius. It is home to a graceful race of merpeople, ruled by King Caesar and Queen Vivian. Their pride and joy is Princess Corallina, a 4-year-old with pink hair and purple shimmering tail. One gentle morning, Corallina darted through the palace halls, playing a game of chase with her mother. Queen Vivian swam behind, calling out with a laugh, "Corallina, where are you?" Corallina giggled from behind a coral pillar, her laughter bubbling through the water like pearls. She could hear her mother's voice echoing through the palace, and the thrill of the game made her heart flutter with joy. Vivian spotted Corallina and called out playfully, "Gotcha!" She swooped in, catching her daughter in a joyful embrace. The two laughed, spinning together in a swirl of bubbles. Just then, King Caesar entered, a regal ruler of Aquarius, Vivian's husband and Corallina's father. With a warm chuckle he said, "My little Corallina, looks like you're having fun." Corallina beamed and swam into his arms. "Daddy!" Vivian smiled and bowed slightly. "Caesar, how have you been, my dearest Majesty?" "Doing great," he replied. "Shall we go to the service and see the whole sea together?" Vivian turned to Corallina. "Would you like to sit on the rocks with us and gaze across the sea?" Corallina says, "Yay!" And so the royal family and most of the merpeople had reached the surface, gathering on sun-warmed rocks that dotted a sparkling sea. Above them, dolphins leapt joyfully through the waves, and seagulls wheeled and cried in the open sky. Corallina gazed around, her eyes wide with wonder. "Wow! This is a great view! The air feels so nice! The sky blower is blowing on my face!" Vivian chuckled softly. "It's called the wind." Corallina says, "I can see that." Then she said, brushing her hair back, "And what are those flyers?" Caesar, seated nearby, with his trident resting against the rock, smiled. "Those are seagulls. They talk loud when they fly around." "They're very noisy, aren't they, Daddy?" "Of course they are," Caesar replied with a laugh. Just then, a small dolphin popped its head above the water, chirping excitedly. Corallina leaned forward. "Hello!" The dolphin squeaked and spun in the water, inviting her to ride. Corallina turned to Vivian, eyes sparkling. "Can I go for a ride?" Vivian smiled warmly. "Of course you can." Corallina gripped the little dolphin's back as it leaped high into the air, droplets of seawater sparkling around them like stars. Corallina says, "Whee! Look at me, I'm the dolphin rider!" From the rocks, Caesar chuckled. "I can see you have fun." Vivian smiled as she watched. After that, the dolphin chirped happily, diving and twirling before gently returning Corallina to her parents. She slid off its back with a giggle, hugging the dolphin's smooth side. Vivian says, "Was it fun?" Corallina says, "Yes, Mummy, she is so amazing." The little dolphin waved at her. Corallina says, "Bye-bye now," watching as a dolphin joined its family, and they swam gracefully into a shimmering blue. Vivian says, "These dolphins are so beautiful, aren't they?" Corallina says, "Yes, the little one is so cute." Vivian says, "Just like you." They both giggled, the sound mingling with the waves and the calls of distant seagulls, as the sun cast golden sparkles across the ocean. Several minutes later, Caesar spotted something far on the horizon, a dark shape cutting through the waves. As it drew closer, his eyes widened, and he has to warn all the merpeople. "Vivian, the fishes are coming. We must go back to sea now." Vivian saw the boat as she is also shocked. "No, it can't be." Caesar raised his trident, voice booming across the rocks. "Everyone, the fishes are coming to capture us. Go, back to the sea." Caesar, Vivian, Coralina, and the rest of the merpeople managed to slip beneath the waves, retreating to safety. But above the surface, the fishes cast their nets wide. Silvery fish thrashed as they were hauled aboard, destined for the grim fate. On deck, a woman in a sharp red coat watched with greedy satisfaction Pandora Fry, founder of the infamous fish and chips empire. Pandora says, "Excellent work, gentlemen. Now, box them up for the cook. We've got customers to feed." The fish says, "Yes, madam, with the hint of your success." Back in Aquarius, Caesar addressed the gathered merpeople and said, "People of Aquarius, thank you all for returning swiftly to safety. All these humans are dangerous. That is why we must never reach the surface again. Not ever." Vivian says, "It's okay, sweetheart. We are all safe now." Coralina looked up, then she said, "Why the humans are so horrible to us?" Vivian says, "We don't need to talk about it now." Coralina says, "Are you sure?" Vivian says, "Yes, my love. I am transparently sure." Coralina was now 18, and she had 3 little sisters named Eve, Pearl, and Shella. She cherished them deeply and would do anything to protect and support them. One serene day, beneath the waves, Coralina stood quietly on the balcony of her coral palace, gazing out at the shimmering sea. Schools of vibrant fish danced through the water, weaving patterns of light and colour that made her smile. After that, she turned and swam toward the throne room. In the throne room, King Caesar sat tall upon his coral-carved throne, his golden trident resting beside him. Queen Vivian, radiant and wise, watched over the court with gentle eyes. On a cushioned seat below, the royal dais, Eve, Pearl, and Shella, the 3 little mermaids, huddled together. They became bored and needed to go somewhere exciting. Shella says, "Is there anything we can do?" Eve says, "I don't know yet." Pearl says, "I know what we can do. We can all go and see all the treasures and all the glitteries." Eve says, "Sounds like a good idea." "Mother, can we go all see the sunken treasure ship, please?" Queen Vivian says, "Well, I suppose it's all right with me." King Caesar leaned forward. "But only Coralina goes with you." Coralina says, "That's right, girls. I think you're too young to go there on your own. So, you need your big sister to come along." Eve says, "Okay, you can come along." Queen Vivian stepped forward, her eyes full of pride. "Thank you, Coralina. You've been so wonderful to your sisters." Coralina says, "Anytime, Mum." They both hugged. King Caesar says, "Make sure to keep them away from any dangers." Coralina says, "I will do, Dad." The ocean shimmered with mystery as Coralina, Eve, Pearl, and Shella arrived at a place where the sunken ship is located. Coralina says, "Wow, it's incredible." Eve says, "I wonder what's in there." Coralina says, "Well, why don't we go in and see what's inside?" Together, the 4 sisters swam around the ship's entrance, their tablets glowing faintly as if sensing the magic within. Coralina and her little sisters glided into the ship, and they all looked around. The things they see is all the abandoned gold and silver coins, diamonds, jewels, and many shiny things. Eve, Shella, and Pearl gasped in unison. "Ooh!" Coralina says, "I know! How fantastic is this?" The little mermaids could not resist. They swam joyfully around and started playing around the treasure. Pearl twirled in the water, the pearl necklace gleaming around her neck, and said, "Oh, look at me! I'm a very pretty princess with a pretty necklace." Shella held up a sparkling diamond, a sparkling ruby, her eyes wide with wonder. "Another me inside is looking at me." Coralina chuckled at what Shella was saying. Then she and Eve can feel the coins and said, "It looks like you're having fun." Eve says, "Yes, I wonder what I can pick." Coralina says, "You can pick anything you want." Eve says, "Oh, I like this one, a shiny gold cup." Coralina says, "That looks amazing. Maybe I can see what I can pick." She swam gently around the treasure mound, her eyes scanning the glittering pile. Then something caught her eye. "Ooh," Coralina says, "this bracelet looks so nice." But then Coralina heard a noise. From the shadows of the treasure chamber, a giant purple octopus stirred. Its eyes blinked open, and its tentacles curled with suspicion. The creature rose slowly from behind the treasure mound, revealing its gleaming crown of coral and shells. Squilly had awakened. He said, "Well, well, little mermaids, are you trying to steal my lovely goods? My lovely treasure?" Coralina gasped, "Girls, stay behind me." "Oh, no, we were just, Squilly says, "Wanted to, pick a bracelet you're touching." Coralina says, "I was just looking at it, okay?" Squilly says, "Oh, really? And are your sisters looking around too?" Eve says, "Oh no, Coralina, don't let him eat you." Coralina says, "I thought octopuses were vegetarians." Squilly says, he lets out a low chuckle and says, "Why would I ever eat you? I just want you to leave my beautiful shiny goods alone with me. Unless..." Squilly's tentacles curling with menace as he ordered the mocha sharks to go after them. Squilly says, "My sea hounds!" Coralina turned to her sisters. "Girls, drop everything and swim away." Eve, Pearl and Shella scattered, their tails flashing as they darted through the golden haze. Coins and jewels tumbled in their wake as the sharks gave chase, snarling through the water. Squilly watched with a sly smile, his voice echoing behind them. You should have asked nicely, little mermaids." Eve, Pearl, Shella and Coralina darted through a treasure chamber fast, their tails flashing like streaks of light. And Squilly bellowed, "Stick 'em!" The mocha sharks surged forward, snarling through the water, their eyes locked on the fleeing mermaids. The sisters reached the ship's window. Eve, Pearl and Shella slipped through one by one, their hearts pounding. Coralina turned back for a split second, making sure they were safe, then swam through last. One of the sharks lunged but misjudged the gap. Its head jammed in the window frame, teeth gnashing uselessly. Squilly groaned and yanked the shark free with a tentacle and said, "Bah! We're foiled. Foiled, I say. Oh well, at least my dearest gold loves are safe with me." Outside, the four mermaids swam fast through the open sea, laughter and relief bubbling around them. The danger was behind them. For now. They slowed their swimming and Pearl says, "Oh, that was fun." Shella says, "And scary at the same time." And Coralina says, "Yeah, but we can't go back there again." Eve looked thoughtful and said, "Yeah, I guess you're right." Coralina says, "I don't really want to tell Mum and Dad about this, otherwise they'll be shocked really badly." Shella says, "Oh, thank you, Coralina." Coralina chuckled, and together they all turned toward home, the sea clam once more. The next day, in the seaside town of Skegness, lived a young man named Elliot. He was 20 years old, kind-hearted, and full of curiosity about the world beyond the shore. He lived with his mum and dad and a dog who is a toy poodle named Tiny. That morning, Elliot was buzzing with excitement. He had been planning a boat trip with his uncle Jerry, a seasoned sailor who knew every tide, every current, and every secret the sea was willing to share. Uncle Jerry says, "Hey, Elliot, great to see you again. Ready for our journey to the sea?" Elliot says, "Hey, Uncle Jerry. Yes, I'm looking forward to it." Tiny barked cheerfully from the deck. Uncle Jerry laughed. "Hello there, Tiny. Glad to see you too." The boat pulled away from the dock, gliding into the open waters of Skegness Bay. The sun sparkled on the waves as the three companions began their tour of the sea, unaware of the eyes watching from below. Underwater, far beneath the surface, Coralina swam gracefully through the kelp forests, enjoying the quiet rhythm of the ocean. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. She says, "What's that? Another boat?" Coralina was hoping that the boat isn't filled with fishes. She hovered near a coral archway, watching the vessel glide above, unaware that someone on board was about to change her life forever. Coralina broke through the waves quietly, her pink hair glistening in the sunlight. In distance, she saw the boat, not a fishing vessel, but something far more peaceful. She swam closer, careful to stay hidden behind a ripple of waves. On board, she spotted a sailor at the helm, laughing with a young man who stood near the edge, gazing out at the sea. A small dog, fluffy and cheerful, barked happily beside them. That's when Coralina saw Elliot. Coralina's heart fluttered. "He's handsome," she thought. Her gaze softening, she hovered just beneath the surface, hidden by the ripples, watching him with quiet fascination. Elliot looked out across the sea, breathing in deeply. "Isn't it great?" he said aloud. "The sea air feels so nice." Tiny barked in cheerful agreement, "Bark, bark," trotting around the deck. As Tiny sniffed along the edge of the boat, he paused, his little nose twitching. He'd tilt his head, sensing something, someone watching. Coralina quickly ducked lower and turned around, her heart racing. "I mustn't been seen," she whispered and reminded herself. "Humans aren't supposed to know we exist." Uncle Jerry turned the wheel with a grin. "So, Elliot, what does my nephew think of this outstanding sea view?" Elliot smiled. "It's great. This whole view is outstanding. Tiny loves it." Jerry chuckled warmly. "He does. He's full of joy." Elliot laughed along, unaware that beneath the waves, someone was watching, someone who would never forget the moment she first saw him. Elliot leaned against the railing, his voice soft. "I'm pleased this tour makes me feel great. After me and my previous girlfriend split up." Uncle Jerry nodded, steering gently. "Yeah, I know. I hope you'll find another one." Elliot smiled wistfully. "Yeah, she's gotta be out there somewhere." Jerry chuckled. "Maybe she likes the sea as much as we do." Elliot laughed. "Yeah, I bet." Coralina, still hidden just beneath the surface, listened quietly. Her heart fluttered at Elliot's words. "He's kind and gentle, and maybe a little lonely," she thought. She smiled, feeling something warm bloom inside her, something she hadn't felt before. She lingered a moment longer, watching him with wide wondering eyes. Then gently she turned away and jumped off a sailing boat, until a big wave surged across the sea, its crest curling like a watery claw. Coralina turned to swim back, but the current was too strong. "Ah!" she cried, her voice swallowed by the roar of the ocean. The wave crashed over her, sweeping her helplessly toward the shore. Bubbles and foam surrounded her as she tumbled through the water. her tail flicking in panic. Moments later, she was washed out to sea, landing softly on the edge of the beach, hidden among the rocks and seaweed. With the boat parked, Elliot, Tiny, and Jerry got off the boat. As Elliot stepped off, he heard people screaming in fear. Elliot says, "What was that?" Without hesitation, he gave Tiny, who was on lead, to Jerry and decided to find out. Elliot says, "Excuse me please, I need to see." The crowd parted just enough for Elliot to see what had caused the panic. There, lying on the sand, half covered in sea foam, was a figure unlike anything he'd ever seen. Long pink hair spilled across the shore, and the shimmering purple tail curled gently with each wave. His breath caught. "A mermaid," he whispered. "Whoa, I don't believe it." He stepped closer, heart pounding. "It's beached. Oh no, it's suffering." The world around him seemed to blur. The voices, the wind, even the sun, as he knelt beside her, unsure what to do but knowing he had to help. At first, he thought they only existed in stories, but it turns out she was real, and she needed him. He took a deep breath and carefully carried the mermaid into his arms and walked to the sea and take her back underneath the water. Uncle Jerry said to himself, "My word, I've never seen anything like that neither. And my nephew is saving a mermaid's life too." Then Tiny sneezed. Elliot reached the water's edge and gently lowered Coralina into the waves. The sea welcomed her, lifting her body with a soft ripple. She drifted beneath the surface, safe once more. Elliot stood for a moment, watching the spot where she disappeared. Then he turned back, walking quietly up the beach. People stopped panicking, and they are in relief. Then Elliot got out, and he and Tiny go home. Somewhere at the battered fish factory, Pandora Fry adjusted her brass telescope, scanning the shoreline with greedy eyes. She gasped. There, on the beach, she saw a young man, Elliot, carrying something extraordinary. A shimmer of purple, a flash of pink hair. "A mermaid," Pandora whispered, her lips curling into a wicked grin. She stepped back from the telescope, eyes gleaming. "Oh yes, yes, this mermaid can make me a fortune." She twirled dramatically, arms outstretched. "Mermaid fillets, mermaid stew, mermaid fritters, and that pink hair? It'll look divine on my wall." She laughed to herself, already imagining the headlines and the riches. Outside, the factory clanged and steamed, but inside, Pandora Fry had just discovered her next obsession. She buzzed into the staff room and to tell her co-workers about her plan filled with millions of pounds, and said, "Gentlemen, we have a new recipe, and it will make me a glorious fortune. We will capture this mermaid and batter it up." 4 factory workers are named Harry, Hugh, Danny, and Jasper. They turned from their tea break and loved the idea for a battered mermaid as well. Even Hugh is excited about this and started clapping and said, "Ooh, yummy delicious mermaid, I'd love some." Danny says, "Not for you, you potato head. For others can give us money." Hugh says, "Ah, okay." Back under the sea, Coralina, who is laying still on the sea ground, her eyes open as she woke up and moaned softly. What happened? How did I... Coralina rose gently to the surface, the water parting around her like silk. She peeked toward the shore, her heart fluttering. There he was, the same young man from the boat, Elliot, the one who had carried her, protected her, saved her. She didn't speak, or wave, or didn't even sing. She simply watched him for a moment, her eyes wide with quiet awe. Then with a soft smile, she whispered to herself, "A human saved my life. and I like him so much." Her heart glowed like a pearl. She dove back beneath the waves, her tail flicking with joy, and began to sing a gentle, lilting melody and dance through the water like sunlight. Coralina swam gracefully through the open ocean. As she sang, schools of fish gathered around her. And then she drifted slowly downward, her song fading into a soft hum. She settled onto a sandy ocean ground. She said, "Ah, I am so in love." After a while, a female ray with her son glided into view, seeing her. The kid ray says, "Mummy, look, it's Princess Coralina." Mother ray says, "Hello there, Your Highness." Coralina opened her eyes and said, "Oh, hey there, I didn't recognize you seeing me until now." The mother ray says, "Did you have a nice time?" Coralina says, "Yeah, I do. I was swimming and singing around." The kid ray says, "Your singing is gorgeous." Coralina giggled and swam over, wrapping the little ray in a soft hug. "Oh, thank you so much. You're so sweet." She gave him a gentle kiss on the cheek. Then she looked toward the distant reef. Coralina says, "I think I'm ready to go back home. I can't keep my family waiting for a long while. Bye now." Mother Ray says, "Goodbye for now, Your Highness." Kit Ray says, "Bye, Princess Coralina." Coralina turned and swam off, her heart light and her song echoing softly through the sea. Just before reaching the gate of Aquarius, a turtle swam up and said, "Princess Coralina, there you are. You've been gone for a while." Coralina says, "Hey there, I was only wandering around the ocean having a good time. You know, having a nice reef swim and singing to myself." The turtle says, "Okay, yeah, it's great, but I can hear all the angry mer people having a royal feud." Coralina blinked. "A royal feud? What exactly do you mean by that?" The turtle says, "You're going to hate this, but they're wondering what's happened to you." Coralina says, "I'm fine. Nothing bad happened." The turtle says, "Well, okay, but if I was you, I would explain to your parents that." Coralina is starting to get nervous. She looked toward the palace gates, suddenly feeling the weight of her absence, and said, "All right, I'll tell them." Turtle says, "Okay, Coralina. Good luck." Coralina swam swiftly through the grand gates of Aquarius, her heart pounding as she approached the royal court. Inside the throne chamber, voices echoed in waves of concern and frustration. Mermaids and mermen were gathered in a heated debate, their tails flicking anxiously as they spoke over one another. At the center, King Caesar gripped his trident with stern authority, while Queen Vivian tried to calm the crowd. "She's been gone too long," one noble cried. "What if she's been captured?" Another gasped, "She's our princess. We deserve answers." Suddenly, Coralina burst into view. What's going on?" she called out, her voice rising above the chaos. "Hello, I'm here." The room felt silent. All eyes turned to the missing princess, safe and shimmering, standing at the foot of the throne. Queen Vivian says, "Coralina, there you are. Where have you been? I've been worried sick." Coralina says, "It's okay, Mum. I'm here now." Vivian says, "I'm pleased you are. But every mer people keep asking us where you are." The mer people finally saw her. Just then, the gathered mer people turned, their voices quieting as they saw her. Coralina becomes nervous more, and finally said, Mermaid says, "Go on, what is it?" Coralina says, The mermaid says, "What is it, Your Highness?" Vivian says, "It's all right. Tell us all." Coralina anxiously said, "A human saved my life by taking me back to the sea." All the mer people gasped in horror, much to her concern. King Caesar was ashamed. "Coralina, how could you reach the surface?" Coralina says, Look, Dad, I can explain. He's not like other humans. He's kind and did the right thing to me. He saved me. Caesar says, they could have captured you and taken you to a treacherous fish-eating place. Coralina, can't you understand? They're dangerous. Coralina says, some of them can be kind to us. You just don't know everything about them. Caesar snapped, I do. Coralina says, Dad, please listen to me. Caesar says, I am the king. You listen to me. Listen to your father. You disobeyed me. You nearly jeopardized the future of Aquarius. Coralina's eyes welled with tears. The court watched in stern silence. Caesar says, and I will never, ever, ever let you reach out to service again. Is that clear? And then Coralina turned, sobbing, and swam away through the palace gates. Vivian says, Coralina, wait! Coralina says, not now. Vivian was not pleased. Oh dear. Caesar, what did you do? Caesar started to calm down and sadly said, Vivian, I tried the best I can, but I must have been too hard on her. That's why I got angry. Vivian says, I know, my king, but we'll have to give her time on her own for a while. Caesar sighs, placing his hand over his face. I know. Coralina swam slowly through the dim waters, her heart heavy with sadness. The vibrant colours of Aquarius faded behind her, replaced by a soft, muted blues of solitude. She found a flat rock, nestled quietly on the ocean ground, and drifted down onto it. Curling her tail beneath her, she lay face down, her arms folded under her head. Small bubbles rose gently around her as she began to cry, her sobs muffled by the sea. She whispered, why couldn't he understand? Why did it have to be this way? The ocean, usually her comfort, felt distant now, as if holding its breath with her, and though no one could hear her tears, the sea wept with her. Poor Coralina. After her tears had faded, Coralina lay quietly on the rock, letting the gentle currents soothe her. She was just beginning to feel calm again, when a cheerful voice echoed nearby. Whee! Look at me go! A green frog with pink fins zipped past, spitting and laughing to himself. Coralina sat up startled. Excuse me, could you please give me some time to relax? I'm too upset. The frog paused mid-swim. Oh, sorry, ma'am. I was just in a good mood. Coralina sighed. Yeah, I know. But why did you have to shout out so loud? The frog floated closer, his smile sheepish. It's just, I used to be a fish, and I always wanted to be a frog. Now I've got arms and legs, and I love swimming like this. Coralina tilted her head, intrigued. Wait, how did you turn into a frog? The frog puffed proudly. There's an otter who makes sweet, sweet potions. His name is Ozzo. Ozzo? Coralina asked. He's a witch doctor otter, the frog explained. I asked him for something that could give me arms and legs, and there we go. Coralina's eyes widened. A thought sparkled in her mind. Wait a minute. If I go and see Ozzo, maybe he can make me a potion that turns me into a human. The frog blinked. Well, okay, he's right over there. He pointed with a flipper, then darted off. Good luck! Coralina watched him disappear into the blue. Oh, he's gone. She looked ahead, determination blooming in her heart. Well, looks like I'll go and see him. And with a flick of her tail, she swam toward the unknown toward Ozzo, and a chance to change everything. Coralina swam through a winding seaweed forest, the fronds brushing gently against her arms as she followed a trail of glowing bubbles. The water grew warmer, tinged with flickers of rainbow light. Ahead, nestled in a coral ridge, she spotted a cave shimmering with colourful beams. She approached cautiously and slipped inside. The cave was filled with swirling vapors and strange trinkets, glowing with enchanted liquids. Shells hummed softly. A puff of sparkling smoke burst from the center. Out of it emerged a brown otter. "Hey there," he said, blinking through the mist. "Did you say you're looking for Ozzo?" Coralina hesitated. "Do you know him?" The otter grinned. "Know him? Yes, I do. And that's me." He twirled in the water, sending a swirl of glitter around him. "Ozzo, the witch doctor otter at your service." Coralina's eyes widened. She had found him, and now her journey to become human might just begin. "Ozzo at your service," the otter declared, twirling through a puff of golden smoke. Coralina blinked. "Oh, so it is you." Ozzo grinned. "You made me curious. How did you find my cave?" "A frog saw me," Coralina began. "And, yes," Ozzo interrupted, nodding proudly. "He used to be a fish, always dreamed of hopping and paddling, so I brewed him a potion. Now he's a frog. Arms, legs, and all." Coralina smiled. "Yes, I see. Come on in," Ozzo beckoned. "I've got something to show you before we talk potions." He led her deeper into a cave, past glowing jars, enchanted coral shelves, and floating lanterns made of jellyfish silk. Coralina gasped. "Ooh, it's so pretty." Ozzo puffed his chest. "Yep, very, very beautiful, isn't it?" "Did you decorate all this?" she asked, eyes wide. "I did," he said proudly. "I'm clever and smart about everything. It's like filled with magics." He reached into a shimmering bowl and held out a glowing fruit. "Would you like a sea berry?" Coralina giggled. "Ooh, yes, please, I'd like one." Ozzo slid a bowl of shimmering sea berries across the table. "Go on, try one." Coralina picked one up and popped it into her mouth. Oh, wow. That tasted good. Ozzo leaned forward, paws clasped. "So, would you like me to make you something? To change you into something?" Coralina hesitated. "Yes, but before I say that, can I tell you something?" Ozzo twirled his whiskers. Sure. Coralina looked down shyly. "It's about a human. I saw him when I reached the boat. He's so handsome." Ozzo's eyes sparkled. "Ooh, have you? Do you like him?" "I do," Coralina admitted, her voice soft. "I feel like I want to see him in person." Ozzo's ears perked up. "Hold on a bubble." He swam over to a shelf and rummaged through a pile of enchanted gadgets. "Aha!" he cried, pulling out a waterproof camera covered in barnacle buttons. He flipped through the footage, bubbles swirling around the screen. "Here it is," he said, pointing. "A video of a human saving a mermaid's life." Ozzo held up the waterproof camera and passed it to her. Coralina says, "Hey, that's me! And I was saved by the right human. Oh, he's so kind." Ozzo says, "Yep, makes perfect sense. Anyway, ready to say the magic words?" Coralina took a deep breath, her heart fluttering. "Yes. Ozzo, can you make me a potion that could turn me into a human?" Ozzo says, "Precisely. Okie dokie, let's go." Ozzo gathered his shimmering ingredients, moon coral dust, jellyfish nectar, and a pinch of service breeze, and dropped them one by one into a gleaming silver cauldron. The water around them began to swell, glowing with a strange electric energy. Ozzo turned to Coralina with a grin. "Big light coming! I cover your eyes and turn around if I were you." He slipped on a pair of tiny sunglasses, the lenses sparkling with enchantment. Coralina shielded her face. Just a boom! A blinding puff of magical smoke burst from the cauldron, lighting up the cave in a flash of violet and gold. Bubbles fizzed. Shells rattled. A faint melody echoed through the mist. When the smoke cleared, Ozzo floated proudly beside a glowing vial. "Potion's ready!" Then Ozzo grabs a bottle and filled it with a warm, shimmering drink in, and said, "Okay, Coralina, it's ready. The bottle's not too hot, so you're all good." Ozzo offers Coralina the bottle. Then she took it and drank it up in one gulp. Coralina says, "Wow, that really tastes good. Now I'm going to swim up and out." She swims out the cave. "Thanks, Ozzo." Ozzo says, "Anytime, Coralina. Swim as quickly as you can. Up and out. Good luck." Coralina surged upward through the water as she held her breath, and her purple fin split and reshaped into 2 human legs. Coralina kicked hard, rising toward the surface. She finally broke through the water, and it was night time. She will have to swim toward the shore. She finally reached land, crawling onto the sand, exhausted. She collapsed, the waves gently lapping at her feet. She would have to rest now, waking at dawn. As the sun rose up, starting a brand new day in Skegness, Coralina started to wake up. She says, "Where am I? What happened?" Then she sat down, and then she finally saw her legs. She is surprised. "It works! I've got legs! Thank you, Ozzo." So now, she needs to practice standing up. She got up with her feet on the sand, but her legs started wobbling as she falls. "Oof! Okay, that was the first try. I'll have to keep trying again." She got up again, and then her legs didn't wobble again. As she stands up perfectly, she says, "This isn't too bad." Now she can try and practice walking. Coralina walked along the sand, each step leaving a soft imprint behind. The sea whispered at her heels, but she didn't look back. She had made it out of the North Shore. She said softly, "Now I can go and find the human who saved me." Coralina stepped off the beach and onto a promenade, her feet brushing against warm shore. Humans strolled past in summer clothes, chatting and laughing, the scent of chips and candy floss drifting on the breeze. She gripped a banister as she climbed the steps, steadying herself. Each movement felt new, thrilling and strange. "Ooh," she whispered, eyes wide. "This place is very fancy. I've never been on land before." As the morning sun bathed a town in golden light, Elliot strolled along the curb with Tiny trotting beside him, tail wagging. "Such a nice day, isn't it, Tiny?" he said, smiling down at his furry companion. Tiny gave a cheerful bark, 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 tongue lolling happily. Elliot's gaze drifted toward the sea in distance. "I still think about that mermaid," he murmured. "The one I helped back into the water. I hope she's okay." Elliot and Tiny are crossing the quiet road, the morning sun casting long shadows across Scarborough Esplanade. As they reach the other side, Elliot spotted a girl walking alone. Elliot says, "Hold on. Is that a girl? Is she... Oh, I need to do something." He dashed to a nearby free towel stand. The free towel stand owner says, "Free towel?" Elliot says, "I'll take one." Elliot used a towel to wrap up Coralina and sighed in relief. "There. Are you okay?" Coralina says, "I'm fine. And why should you wrap up a cloth around me?" Then she recognized that she found the right human. "Is it you? The one who saved my life?" Elliot says, "Wait. Do I know you?" Coralina says, yeah." Elliot says, "Are you lost or something?" Coralina whispered, glancing around nervously. "I can explain soon. I just don't want anybody to know what happened." As Elliot and Coralina stood together, Tiny trotted between them, his lead somehow looping around their legs. With a playful tug, He bound them gently, Coralina's bare feet brushing Elliot's. They both blushed, eyes meeting in surprise. Okay, Elliot says, trying to keep his balance. Why don't I take you to my house and get you cleaned up? Coralina smiled warmly. Oh, thank you so much. Tiny barked cheerfully, clearly proud of his matchmaking moment. As they walked down the quiet street, the morning sun glinting off the windows, Elliot glanced at Coralina. So, what's your name? He asked. Ruff! Tiny barked, wagging his tail. Coralina giggled and says, I'm Coralina. Elliot smiles. Coralina? That's a pretty name. I'm Elliot. It's so nice to meet you, Elliot, she said warmly. And your wolf is so cute. Oh, this is Tiny, Elliot replied, giving the dog a fond pat. He's my dog, very friendly. Oh, Tiny is adorable, Coralina said, crouching to stroke his fur. I love him so much. They reached Elliot's house. He opened the front door, and the three of them stepped in. Coralina, Elliot, and Tiny together. Elliot turned the taps, mixing hot and cold water until a bath was just right. Elliot says, I'm running a bath for you, Coralina. It won't take too long. Coralina says, well, I didn't know the white boat's that small. Elliot chuckled. It's called a bathtub. You use it to get clean with lots of water. And you can add other things like shampoo, soap, and body conditioner. With the bath ready, Elliot gently carried Coralina and lowered her in the warm water. She relaxed instantly. Coralina saw a pink soap, thinking that it's seafood. Is this a bar of pink coral? It looks delicious. She was motioned to eat it, but Elliot says, Wait! Coralina says, I'm sorry. Elliot says, this is not for eating, it's for rubbing your body. Coralina says, Oh, I see. Elliot says, Here, let me do it for you. He gently rubbed the soap along her arms, then reached for shampoo, working it into her pink hair with care. Coralina says, Oh, that feels nice. Elliot says, Do you like it? Then she says, I do. I hope this will make my hair smell nice. Elliot smiled after she said that. After the bath, Coralina wrapped herself in a towel, her cheeks glowing with warmth. Elliot headed off to find clothes that might fit her, something soft, something kind. Coralina stepped into a room, her new outfit hugging her gently, a white shirt sprinkled with pink hearts and light purple shorts that fit just right. She twirled once, barefoot on the soft carpet, her pink hair bouncing with each movement. These clothes are amazing, she said, beaming. I've never worn anything like this before. Elliot smiled, watching her glow. I'm pleased you like them. I love them, Elliot, she said, stepping closer. You've been so sweet to me. Tiny barked softly, wagging his tail, as he padded over to sniff her new look. Coralina giggled and crouched to stroke his fur. He likes it too. Elliot chuckled. Coralina lifted and strand of her hair and inhaled. My hair smells wonderful. Elliot smiled, his heart full. You're officially part of the land now. After that, Elliot's parents came back to a house named Claire and James. All four sit in the living room together, with Elliot introducing Coralina to his parents. Elliot says, Mom, Dad, this is Coralina. I saw her after she got out of the beach. She was cold and wet, so I have to help her. Claire says, Nice to meet you, Coralina. Coralina says, It's so nice to meet you too. And yes, Elliot really helped me after I was at the beach. He gave me a bath and took such good care of me. Elliot, may I say something about what happened before I met you? Elliot says, yeah, sure. Coralina says, I was a mermaid you saved after I was beached. Then I met an otter who makes potions. I asked him to make one for me, and he created one that turned me into a human. Elliot says, oh my gosh, so you and the mermaid are the same? Coralina says, exactly, and thank you for saving my life. Hugged him. I owe you one. James says, that's unusual. Claire says, that's amazing. And did you manage to walk? Coralina says, I did, yes. Tiny jumps onto Coralina's knees, and she said, oh, he loves me. She strokes him gently as Tiny wags his tail. Claire says, oh, this is so cute. Tiny likes you, Coralina. She says, I know. James says, Elliot, I'm very proud of you helping her after she came from the beach. Anyways, I got dinner planned for all of us tonight. Claire says, ah, yes, we're having pasta and bolognese for tonight. Elliot says, ah, yeah. What do you think, Coralina? Coralina says, yeah, but I'm getting curious. What is pasta and what is bolognese? It's dinner time, and Coralina, Elliot, Claire and James sit down to eat pasta together. Coralina looks delighted, but curious as she studies the utensils. She saw a fork, and it reminded her of a hair comb. Coralina says, is this a hair comb? I want to brush my hair with this. Claire says, oh, Coralina, what are you doing? Coralina says, I'm just brushing my hair. Elliot says, yep, mermaids do that. But that's not a hair comb. It's a fork. Use it to eat food with it. Coralina says, ah, I see. She carefully pokes a single piece of pasta, lifts it and eats it. Elliot says, so, what do you think? Coralina says, oh wow, this is delicious. Pasta is delicious. Thank you so much for making this, Claire. Claire says, oh, you're welcome. Elliot says, so, Coralina, I was wondering if I could take you to town tomorrow. Coralina is surprised. Oh yes, I'd love that. Elliot says, and you'll also get to meet my uncle, Jerry. He's a sailor. Coralina agreed that it would be a great plan for tomorrow. It's time for bed, and Elliot finished laying out a soft mat for Coralina to sleep in and said, alright, I made you a spare bed, so you'll be all cozy. Coralina lies down and feels relaxed. This bed feels good. Elliot says, yeah, it does. Then he puts a blanket around her shoulders, then takes himself to bed. Before Coralina goes to sleep, she said, Elliot, thank you again for your help. And you are so handsome. Elliot says, oh, thank you. You look very beautiful, by the way. Coralina blushed. Oh, thank you so much. And I can't wait for tomorrow. I hope it's going to be fantastic. Elliot says, yeah, I bet. Well, good night, Coralina. Good night, Elliot. And then they drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, at Aquarius, Queen Vivian gently guides Eva, Pearl and Shella to bed. Eve says, Mummy, is Coralina coming back? Vivian sighs sadly. I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm sure she'll be alright. Pearl says, I hope she's okay too. Shella says, I'm sad. I want her coming back home. Vivian comforts her for a hug. Oh, there, Shella. It's okay. I promise. She'll be alright. Vivian gathers Shella into a warm hug, stroking her hair. Then she said, but now you need to sleep. I love you all. Good night, my little ones. She gives each of them a gentle kiss on the forehead before swimming quietly out of the room. King Caesar sits slumped on his throne, the weight of the ocean pressing on his shoulders. A guard approaches, bowing respectfully. He says, Your Highness, we looked everywhere, and there is still no sign for the princess. King Caesar sighed. We'll have to wait until she returns. Leave me and get some rest. The guard says, Yes, Your Highness, I will. Vivian says, our babies are asleep now. Now I have come to sit with you for a while. Caesar says, thank you, Vivian. He nods, but his expression crumples. He covers his face with one hand, overwhelmed. Oh, Vivian, what have I done? Dear Neptune, what have I done? Morning arrived bright and clear over Skegness. Elliot and Coralina were getting ready to go out to Skegness town. Tiny is staying with James and Claire, who waved to those two who are going out, stepped out the house, both dressed and ready for their day in town. Coralina walked barefoot as usual, enjoying the cool pavement under her feet. It was a lovely day in Skegness, and the sun is shining too. Coralina reached for Elliot's hand, in case she had never been here before. She says, I think I'll hold your hand. I've never been in this place before. Elliot says, that's okay, I've got you. We'll take it slow, okay? When they walk around, Elliot showed her the clock tower. Coralina says, what's that? Elliot says, this is the clock tower. It was built over 100 years ago. Coralina says, wow, it looks so incredible. Elliot says, yeah, a clock is something that tells you what time it is. Watches do that too, and so do cell phones. Very cool, isn't it? Coralina says, yes, cool. They both laughed. Elliot says, so, where would you like to go? This place has a shopping centre and lots of fun rides to ride on. Coralina says, I want to explore around the shopping centre. And Elliot says, okay. Coralina and Elliot made their way toward a shopping centre called the Hildred's Shopping Centre. Coralina goes inside, gazing at the colourful signage, and said, whoa, this looks like a treasure cave. Elliot laughed. Coralina stepped through the doors, still holding his hand, her gaze drifting upward as the colours danced across the glass. The first shop they go to is the clothing shop where Coralina tries putting a beach hat on. Elliot likes the look of Coralina wearing a hat and said, what do you think? Coralina says, it feels great. The second shop they go to is the bookshop. Elliot is having a look around until Coralina showed him a fantasy novel with a sea dragon on the cover and said, this book reminds me of home. Elliot says, oh really? Coralina says, yeah. And Elliot says, I'll tell you what, I'll buy 2 books for you. You pick this one and we'll find one more. Coralina says, sure. The other book she picks is a romance novel with a cover of a man and a woman in a rainforest. Coralina says, I like this one. They remind me of you and me in paradise. Elliot smiled. Oh, that's nice. Okay, we'll pick those 2 books and I'll go pay. The third shop they go to is the jewellery shop called H. Samuel. Coralina looks around the necklaces and bracelets. Elliot showed her a charm bracelet with tiny silver shells and a dolphin dangled from it, and said, you are going to love this one. Coralina was surprised. Wow, it looks so beautiful. And so, Elliot bought a bracelet and then put it around Coralina's wrist. And he said, now you've got a bit of Skegness to take with you. Coralina says, thank you. I'll wear it when I swim again. After the shops, they go to an amusement park. The park they go to is Fantasy Island. Coralina was thrilled to see the rides. She grabbed Elliot's hand with her grip, warm and eager. Elliot chuckled. You're very enthusiastic, are you? Coralina says, yes, these rides are amazing. She spun slowly in place, taking in every detail. The spinning teacups, the soaring coaster tracks, the colourful booths. Her eyes sparkled like she was seeing magic. The first ride they go to was a spinning chair ride. As a chair lifted off the ground, Coralina gasped. She lifted both arms, laughing with pure joy. It's like flying like a bird in the sky. The second ride they chose was the roller coaster. Coralina was enjoying it, but Elliot freaks out. The third ride they go to is the merry-go-round. They sit on one each horse. They look at each other's eyes as they have a wonderful time together. After the rides, they decide to sit down to have milkshakes at the ice cream stand. Coralina is having raspberry flavoured, and Elliot is having salted caramel flavoured. After that, Coralina and Elliot were walking at the beach. The sky melted into hues of peach and lavender. The tide whispered in and out. Coralina says, "It's so beautiful." Elliot glanced at her, then at the glowing horizon. "Yeah." The two of them sat down and they watched the gentle waves of the edge of the sea. "Elliot?" "Yeah?" "I have something to tell you. I remember when I was little, even before I became human. My mum and dad and I reach up to a surface and we sit on rocks. I had a fun ride with a dolphin and I enjoyed it." "You had a dolphin ride? That's awesome." "Yeah, but then a boat came to catch some fish, so I have to swim back down, and my dad forbid all mer people to go back to the surface." Elliot was saddened to hear this and said, "Oh, that's terrible. But I'm pleased that you and your family got back safe." "We did. Pandora Wright is responsible for this, but she and my uncle already became enemies. Your uncle is a very nice sailor. I'd like to meet him." "Yeah, I bet you will." Coralina placed her head onto his shoulder and said, "You are so amazing for me." "Thank you. You are the most beautiful girl I've ever met who is a gift from the sea." Coralina's eyes sparkle with joy and says, "Thank you. That really means a lot to me." Coralina turned toward him, her eyes bright and full of feeling. Elliot leaned in and their lips met in a quiet, gentle first kiss. "I love you, Coralina." "I love you too, Elliot." They lie down on the sand and cuddle, and at the same time, the sun goes down, starting a new evening. After they left the beach, they walked slowly along the path until they reached a lamppost glowing warm against the deepening purple sky. Coralina and Elliot stopped beneath it, turning toward one another. And then the two hold hands as they walk at the streets, on their way to a restaurant to meet up with Uncle Jerry. When Elliot opens the door for Coralina to go in, Uncle Jerry said, "Hello there, young lady. You must be the mermaid my nephew talks about. My name is Jerry." Coralina says, "I'm Coralina. Nice to meet you too." Elliot says, "Hi, Uncle Jerry. We had a great time today." Uncle Jerry says, "I know you did. Let's all sit down at a table, shall we?" Coralina, Elliot, and Jerry sit down at a table. While they sit down, the three of them settle comfortably at the table. Coralina picked up a menu, her eyes widening as she scanned the long list of dishes. Elliot, what is a cheeseburger?" "It's like a sandwich with beef burger, cheese, lettuce, and tomato in a bun. It also came with chips too." "Ah, okay. I could try a burger." "Okay, I think I'll have the same." The waitress came and they asked to have burger and chips. Uncle Jerry will have a steak sandwich. Coralina is telling Jerry a story of how she transforms into a human and how she met Elliot. And then the food came to a table. The three thanked them for putting their meals and drinks of water and tropical juice and Coca-Cola Zero and some chilled jar of water with mini glasses on the table. Coralina saw the look of her burger and she is satisfied. "It looks so good." Coralina picked up her burger with both hands, studying it for a moment before taking a bite. Oh, this is so good. The land food is so delicious." "First time eating this type of food?" "Absolutely." Uncle Jerry says, "So it looks like you had a very nice day with each other." Elliot says, "Yes, we walked around the shops and she chose a hat, 2 books, and a bracelet." Coralina says, "The 2 books I like is the one with a sea dragon and the other with two lovers, which reminds me of the two of us at the beach we've been to. Uncle Jerry says, "Good choices, Coralina. Very nice choices." They continued eating, chatting and laughing together. Coralina tried her tropical juice, Elliot sipped his Coke Zero, and Jerry enjoyed his steak sandwich. The warm lights of a restaurant made everything feel cozy and safe. When they finished, they stepped outside into a cool evening air. Jerry gave them both a friendly wave. When they arrived home, Elliot unlocked the front door and the two of them stepped inside. The house felt warm and safe after a long, exciting day. Elliot carried the bag filled with Coralina's new things to his room, the hat, the books, the bracelet box, placing them neatly on his desk. After saying goodnight to James, Claire and Tiny, Coralina and Elliot sleep together in the same bed. They shared their kiss again, and Coralina says, "Good night, Elliot. I love you." And Elliot says, "Good night, Coralina. I love you too." Elliot turned off a lamp, and he and Coralina sleep. The morning light poured softly through the window as Coralina and Elliot sat across from each other. Bowls of fruit and yogurt, some orange juice and cinnamon rolls steaming gently between them. Coralina looked peaceful at first, her smile small but content. Elliot watched her for a moment, then leaned forward slightly. Elliot says, "So, are you happy here with me?" Coralina says, "Yes, I am." Then she stopped smiling as she's starting to miss her family. Her mother, her father, and her sisters too. This made Elliot ask a question. "What is it?" Coralina says, "It's about my family. They're distraught without me." Elliot says, "Do they live underwater too?" Coralina says, "Yes. They are the royal family of Aquarius, and I am their princess." Elliot says, "Right, okay. That makes sense. Well, if they're still concerned, then I should take you back." "Really? You mean I'm going back?" "Yeah, I think so." Coralina gave him a hug. "Thank you." Elliot says, "I did buy 2 books and a hat yesterday, but I'll save them for you when you come back here next time. You don't want the books to be all wet and lose pages." "I'd like that too. And I can always take my bracelet with me around my wrist." So now, Elliot takes Coralina back to the sea. Before she goes underwater, she gave Elliot a hug and said, "Oh, Elliot, I love you so much." Elliot says, "I love you too, Coralina. I'd love to see you again someday." Coralina says, "Me too." They both shared a kiss, with Coralina's tear rolling down her cheek. And so, her first adventure on land has ended. She removed her clothes and walks to the sea. When Elliot walks, after he hit the sea, he can only see Coralina's clothes lying on the sand. He sighs sadly, and he truly understands that she made a right decision. Coralina got back into her lily pad bandeau top, and her legs transformed back into her purple mermaid tail. She swims back to Aquarius. She saw her mum, Vivian. Coralina says, "Mum, I'm back." Vivian says, "Coralina, you have returned." The mother and daughter swam straight to each other's arms in reunion. Vivian says, "My beautiful daughter, the sea will always welcome you back, my dear." Coralina says, "Thanks. I'm so happy to be here too." Vivian saw Coralina's bracelet and says, "What's this?" Coralina lifted her arm, suddenly shy. "This is my new bracelet. It looks so pretty, but Vivian placed her hand onto Coralina's cheek reassuringly. "It's okay. You told us that some humans are nice. Did you have a chance to see one who saved you?" Coralina says, "Yes, I did. He and I had a great time yesterday." Vivian says, Let's talk about it inside, shall we? Coralina and Queen Vivian settled beside King Caesar, the soft glow of the palace lights reflecting off the coral walls. Caesar looked at his daughter for a long moment, not only as king, but also as a father who had spent days fearing the worst. He exhaled and saying, "Coralina, I should have thought more, and I understand that you were right about the human you saw. He is not like the other humans, isn't he?" Coralina says, "No, he's only friendly. And he gave me this bracelet which I still wear around my wrist. One of them reminds me of when I had my dolphin ride as a child." Vivian says, "Yes, I remember that moment." Coralina says, "Dolphins are amazing. I'm so pleased that I got a bracelet charm like that." Before Caesar could respond, a rush of excited voices echoed through the hall. It was Eve, Pell, and Shella came and they saw her. "Coralina, you're back! Coralina, yay, Coralina!" Coralina beamed as her sisters wrapped around her. "Oh, Eve, Pearl, and Shella, glad to see you too. And you know what? I've got a new bracelet." She showed her sisters the new bracelet. The three sisters leaned in at once, eyes sparkling. Pearl says, "Ooh, it looks so pretty. I can see a dolphin here." Coralina says, "It is a dolphin, and even seashells in it too." Eva traced a charm with a fingertip. "It's beautiful." Shella whispered, "It looks like something special." Before Coralina could answer, Caesar swam closer, his expression softer than she'd seen in days. He says, "Coralina, if you want to, you may reach to the surface and see the view once again. I break you free from the limits of the sea." Vivian smiled proudly beside him. Eve, Pell, and Shella gasped in excitement. Coralina smiled and swam straight into her father's arms. "Thank you, Daddy. I love you so much." Caesar embraced her with all the strength of a father who had feared losing his child. "I love you too, my sweet princess." Vivian drifted closer, her expression warm and full of pride. Coralina turned and wrapped her arms around her mother as well, resting her head against her shoulder. Vivian stroked her daughter's pink hair gently, the way she had when Coralina was small. After that, Coralina reached to the surface and sat on the rock. During a while, her thoughts turned to Elliot. She had such fun with him, and she may not be able to see him again. Coralina lifted her wrist, letting the bracelet shimmer in the sunlight. The dolphin charm spun slowly, catching the light just like it had when Elliot first placed it in her hand. Coralina says, "Elliot, I love to see you again. I wish you can join me to Aquarius." The sea carried her words away, as if delivering them to the shore where he'd stood only yesterday. Meanwhile, Ozzo paddled along the surface, humming to himself as the afternoon sun sparkled on the waves. He says, "Ah, what a beautiful afternoon. Seagulls flying and squawking quite angrily." Then he saw Coralina sitting on the rock and said, "Hey, it's Coralina!" And she turns back into a mermaid. Wow, the seawater must have turned her back into the way she was. Oh yeah. Until suddenly, a fishing boat came and it's making also trying to warn Coralina. But before he could call her, a deep mechanical rumble rolled across the water. "Uh-oh." Also gasped, "Oh no, it's the fishing boat. It's got a mermaid net. I gotta warn Coralina." Also tried to call her name. He splashed wildly, waving his paws in the air. But Coralina couldn't hear something. Also says, "Coralina, look out for that net." Also called, but it was too late. Coralina was lifted from the water, tangled and helpless. The boat crew moved fast. Too fast. Tossing the net into a van waiting on the pier. The back doors slammed shut. Also clutches his head. "Oh no, this is bad. This is really, really bad. I need to do something. I had to tell the king. He tried swimming to Aquarius, but he stopped and said, wait, I can't do that. I know. I'll go out to sea to find a human who Coralina saw and tell him that she's been taken. Yeah, that's what I'll do. With a determined squeak, he paddled toward the shore, ready to face the human world again for Coralina. Ozzo busts out of sea and begins his journey to look for Elliot. He runs through Scarborough Esplanade and said, I hope I'm not too late. A young bloke saw him and said, hey look, it's Splinter from Ninja Turtles. Ozzo says, it's Ozzo. The young bloke says, who's Ozzo? Another bloke snorts and said, dude, have you been drinking seawater? Ozzo didn't stop until he reached a familiar road. Then to a street he saw Elliot, who is going back home. Before Elliot unlocks the front door, Ozzo called behind him and said, wait! What? I'm down here. Elliot looks down to see an otter. You don't need to freak out. Hi there. You must be Coralina's boyfriend. My name is Ozzo, a witch doctor who helped Coralina to turn into a human. Elliot says, okay. Hi, I'm Elliot. Is something wrong? Yes, there is something wrong. Coralina's in danger. The boat has already taken her. What? I tried to warn her while she was sitting on the rock, but she couldn't hear me. That's why I need you to rescue her urgently. You don't want her to be cooked by a crazed woman with fried fish on her breath and eyes like stinging vinegar. Elliot couldn't believe this. This made him feel upset and said, oh no, this isn't good. And you're right, I must go find her. Ozzo says, oh yeah, let's do this thing, yeah! Ozzo is going to lead Elliot to where Pandora's fish factory was located. Inside Pandora's fish factory, the men dragged Coralina into a cold, dim room and shut her inside a metal cage. The clang of the lock echoed through the space. Coralina pushed herself upright, dazed. What? Where am I? What is this? A sharp voice cut through the room. At last! Coralina gasped. Who said that? A woman stepped forward from the shadows. Her smile twisted with triumph. I said that, she replied. I am Pandora Fry. Coralina's heart pounded. Pandora leaned closer to the bars. And you, my dear, are going to make me very, very rich. I've waited a long time for this. She turned to the workers. Well done! Just like I planned. Get everything ready. Then she looked back at Coralina, eyes glinting. I'll be back soon. I want you awake when I return. Pandora swept out of the room, leaving Coralina alone. The factory around her hummed with machinery. She could hear the clatter of crates, the hiss of steam, the clang of metal. It was frightening loud, unfamiliar, and nothing like the gentle world she knew. Coralina curled up on the floor of the cage, trembling. Elliot, where are you? Her voice cracked. Please save me, please. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she pressed her hands to her face, wishing more than anything that Elliot could hear her. Elliot and Ozzo nearly made it to Pandora's factory. Ozzo says, here we are. Elliot says, Pandora has her inside. You're talking about the woman with the bow that netted her? Yes. Okay, but there is one important thing. When you're going in, you must be very quiet. Got it. And for her co-workers, I'll go in and distract them. You sure? Elliot, please, I'm an otter. Chaos is my speciality. Elliot couldn't help a tiny smile the first since Coralina was taken. Alright, let's do this. Ozzo pointed toward a side entrance. Follow me, I know a way in. Together, they crept toward a factory, one determined human, one fearless otter, ready to do whatever they took to save Coralina. After Harry, Hugh, Danny and Jasper got a flour and oil ready, they are sitting down having coffee. Suddenly, Ozzo clapped his hands and gave them attention. The four guys look to see if the otter is around somewhere. Then Ozzo added something to all 4 cups of coffee and he left. Then the 4 guys looked back. Huh? What's that? I have no idea, but let's carry on drinking coffee until it gets too cold, okay? They drink coffee until they started to fall asleep. Ozzo whispered, "Oh, wow, I am so good." Elliot got the keys and he goes in the room where all the fish are caged and whispered, "Okay, I've got the keys. Now I'm going in to save my girlfriend." Then he saw Coralina crying in the cage. "Coralina, it's me, Elliot." Coralina's breath caught. She lifted her head slowly, eyes wide and wet. "Elliot, is that you?" Elliot says, "Shh, I'm here to get you out. No one's coming to fry you. I'm just going to unlock the cage, then I'll carry it out and then back to the sea." "Okay." Elliot fumbled through the keys. One too small, one too rusty, one that didn't even fit. His hands shook, but he kept going. Come on. Finally, he found one that slid in smoothly. Click! The lock turned. The door creaked open. Coralina gasped with relief as Elliot gently helped her sit up, his arms steady and warm around her. "You're safe now. I got you." Elliot lifted Coralina carefully, one arm beneath her back, the other supporting her tail. She curled instinctively against him, still shaken but trusting him completely. The hallway stretched ahead, long shadowy, lit by only a few flickering lamps. Every footstep felt loud, even though Elliot moved as gently as he could. "Coralina, would you mind opening the exit, please?" "Sure." She pushed the handle that opens the exit door. Before he could take another step, Ozzo's voice piped up. "Hey! Way to go! And Coralina, I tried to call you, but you couldn't hear me due to a noisy boat that captured you. But you know what? I'm glad we saved you." Coralina says, "Ozzo, I'm glad to see you too. And thank you for helping Elliot save me." Ozzo puffed out his chest proudly. "Don't thank me just yet. Come on, you two lovers. Let's get back to the beach and sea." Elliot tightened his hold on Coralina, and she rested her head against his shoulder. Relieved and safe at last, Ozzo trotted ahead like a tiny heroic guide leading them home. Pandora Fry marched down the corridor, heels clacking like warning shots. She was muttering to herself, already imagining her perfect recipe, sizzling in the fryer, but when she reached the storage room, she froze. The cage door hung open. The cage was empty. The mermaid was gone. For a moment, Pandora didn't breathe. Then, "What?" Her scream rattled the crates. Harry, Hugh, Danny and Jasper, who had just woken up groggy and confused, jumped as Pandora stormed toward them like a thundercloud in human form. "All right, you fools," she shrieked. "Which one of you idiots set my recipe free? Speak up! Who did it?" Harry threw his hands up. "I didn't do it." Jasper shook his head wildly. "Me neither." Danny pointed at Hugh instantly. Maybe Hugh did it, not me." Pandora grabbed Hugh by the collar, shaking him like a maraca. "Was it you? Was it?" Hugh failed. No, I didn't do it, I swear." Harry cleared his throat nervously. Miss Fry, what?" "I think I know. Must have been some young bloke who broke into our factory. Use the telescope and find out." "Fine. It better not be a waste of my time." She snatched the telescope, stomped at a window, and scanned the distance. Her eye twitched. There, running across the yard, was Elliot, carrying Coralina in his arms, with Ozzo leading the way. Pandora's face turned the color of boiling oil. "That boy!" she hissed. "That boy!" Her rage echoed through the factory. The waves lapped softly around Elliot's legs as he lowered Coralina into the water. Her tail shimmered beneath the surface, finally free again. She said, Thank you for saving me. You're welcome. Coralina hesitated, her fingers trailing along his arm. Before I go, would you like to join me in the sea? Elliot blinked, surprised and deeply touched. Before he could answer, Ozzo popped up beside them with a splash. Oh, I like that idea, he said, whiskers twitching with excitement. I'll go into my cave and make a merfolk potion for you, Elliot. Elliot laughed softly. That's a good idea. I'd love that. Thanks, Ozzo. Ozzo saluted with both paws. Leave it to me. Coralina and Ozzo swim back. Elliot walked along the shore, still thinking about Coralina, when a voice called out behind him. Ah, you must be Jerry's nephew. He turned and there was Pandora Fry. Calm, smiling, too calm. Elliot's eyes narrowed. You're the one who nearly cooked Coralina. Pandora placed a hand on her chest, pretending to be offended. Oh, I wasn't going to cook her. I heard you missed her so much. I'll give you a boat ride. That way you can see her again. Elliot hesitated. Are you sure? Trust me, Pandora said sweetly. I won't do anything. Elliot sighed. All right. They climbed into a speedboat, the engine roaring as Pandora steered them out to sea. Coralina and Ozzo were swimming back toward the shore when she paused. Another boat? Oh, great, here we go again. Pandora and Elliot are on a speedboat. Pandora slowed the engine and pointed out over the water. Go on, Elliot. Look until you see her. Elliot leaned over the side, scanning the waves. I haven't seen her yet. No? Pandora's voice shifted, smooth, sinister. Maybe I can help you look harder. Before Elliot could react, wham! Pandora kicked him straight off the boat. He hit the water with a splash, sinking fast. Pandora revved the engine, laughing wildly as she sped away. You did it, Pandora! Goodbye, Elliot! Coralina spotted a shape drifting downward, limp, sinking, bubbles rising around him. Her heart stopped. No! Elliot! She darted toward him, arms outstretched, tail slicing through the water with desperate speed. She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him upward with all her strength. Come on, please, hold on. Ozzo swam beside her, panic in his voice. Coralina, hurry! Get him to shore while I go make a potion for him. Coralina raced toward the beach, carrying the man who had saved her, now fighting to save him. When Pandora returned to the beach, expecting praise or at least silence, she instead found a crowd waiting for her. James, Claire, Tiny the dog, Uncle Jerry, and 2 police officers, all of them staring at her with disappointment and anger. Uncle Jerry stepped forward, voice booming across the sand. Pandora! Where is my nephew? Pandora blinked, then forced a smile that twitched at the edges. He jumped. Did you hear what I just said? He jumped. The policeman shook his head firmly. No, I saw what really happened. The policewoman crossed her arms. You kicked a young man into deep water and let him drown. Jerry jabbed a finger toward her. That's right. I told him exactly what I saw. Take her away. Pandora's face twisted with fury as the officers grabbed her arms. Gerald, you spoilt foe! She shrieked. You let your pathetic nephew destroy my plans! My recipe! Ah! Her voice echoed across the beach as the police escorted her to a car. Tiny barked once, sharply, as if to say good riddance. The door slammed, the engine started, and Pandora Fry was driven away, still shouting nonsense as the car disappeared down the road. Tiny suddenly barked, ears up, tail stiff. Jerry knelt beside him. "What is it, boy?" Tiny barked again. Bark, 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 bark. Louder, and sprinted toward the shoreline. Everyone followed. There, emerging from the waves, was Coralina holding Elliot in her arms. Unfortunately, Elliot is unconscious. James and Claire were shocked in sadness. James froze. Claire's hands flew to her mouth. "No," James whispered. Claire fell to her knees in the sand. "My sweet son," she sobbed. Coralina laid Elliot gently on the beach, her hands trembling as she cupped his face. "Elliot, wake up. Please wake up. Don't leave me." She leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to his lips, desperate, trembling, full of hope. But he didn't move. Coralina's eyes filled with tears. She bowed her head, crying quietly, until... Elliot coughed. A burst of seawater splashed from his mouth as he gasped for air. Coralina's head shot up, eyes wide with relief. "Elliot! You're alive!" He blinked, dazed. "Hey, of course I'm alive." "Oh man, what happened?" Coralina laughed through her tears. "I saw you drown, but now I saved you." Jerry stepped forward, voice steady. "I let the police take care of Pandora." Elliot sat up slowly. "Uncle Jerry, so she was responsible. Where is she now?" "She's going to prison for now," Jerry said firmly. Elliot exhaled. "Well, that's good." He turned to Coralina, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "You're safe now." Coralina smiled softly. "Of course I am. First you saved me, now I saved you." Their foreheads touched, and then they shared a kiss. When Ozzo's back in the cave, he makes a new potion for Elliot and says, "Alright, all set with lid closed. Now I'm going to give it to him. Oh yeah." He swims out of his cave and swims back to see Coralina and Elliot once again. Ozzo says, "Hi Elliot, I got your potion ready." Elliot says, "Hi Ozzo, I'll be right there." It is time for Elliot to say goodbye to his parents, Tiny and Uncle Jerry, until he sees them again. "Mom, Dad, I have something to say. I decided to stay with Coralina. I don't really want to lose her again, and she doesn't want to lose me neither. I hope you understand." James and Claire understand him well, and then gave him a hug. "Take care, son. I hope you have a wonderful time with your new beautiful girlfriend." Elliot gave Tiny a stroke, then gave Uncle Jerry a hug. After that, Elliot ditched his own clothes, drank a potion that Ozzo made for him, and then his legs transformed into a green merman fin. Coralina is so happy for Elliot to stay underwater with her. Ozzo twirled in the water, proud of himself, and said, "Yes, it works! Have a nice time, love doves." Coralina and Elliot says, "Thanks, Ozzo." Coralina takes Elliot to meet her family. Coralina and Elliot swam into a great hall of Aquarius, hand in hand. The soft green light shimmered across the pillars as Caesar, Vivian, Eve, Pearl, and Shella turned toward them. Vivian's face lit up instantly. "Coralina!" The mother and daughter rushed into each other's arms, embracing tightly. "Hi, Mum," Coralina says, smiling. There's something I'd like you to meet." Vivian looked past her, and her eyes softened. "My, who is this?" Coralina took Elliot's hand again. "This is Elliot. He's coming to stay with us." Eve gasped happily. "Wow, Coralina has a boyfriend! That's great!" Pearl claps her hands. "How romantic!" Shella giggled shyly. "I'd love to have a boyfriend too, but I'll wait until I'm older." Caesar swam forward, tall and regal, trident in hand. His gaze was steady but kind. "So, Elliot," he said, "you must be the human who saved my daughter's life." Elliot nodded respectfully. "Yes, I did save her. I did it for your kingdom too." Caesar's stern expression melted into a proud smile. He placed a hand on Elliot's shoulder. "Thank you, my son." Coralina beamed. Elliot felt his heart swell. The ocean opened wide around them, calm and bright. Coralina and Elliot swam side by side, their tails moving in perfect rhythm. Schools of fish shimmered past like drifting stars, swirling around them in soft spirals. Coralina turned toward Elliot, her pink hair floating like a cloud in the water. Elliot met her gaze, his new green tail flicking lightly as he steadied himself. They drifted closer for a moment. Neither spoke. They simply looked at each other's eyes, smiling in that quiet way two people do when they feel completely safe. Coralina reached for his hands. Elliot gently took hers. The fish circled them in a bright, dancing ring, and then, with the soft currents carrying them, they leaned in and shared a tender underwater kiss, gentle, warm, and full of a promise of their new life together. Well, that was a great read-along. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and have a good night.